will never be. A god.
Who is this madman? And most important, who can stop him?
That would be me.
He's young, he'll walk again. But you'll stay scared, won't you, punk?
When they come, I'll make them tell me where Sarah is. After that, I'm gonna...
No, it's cool. It's cool.
Reverend Bruce isn't particularly scary to begin with, but the world he comes from and the fight he fights is definitely scary. This is a version of Batman who isn't just taking up the mantle to fight his parents' killers and rid Gotham of crime, but instead is attempting to fight against a whole political and societal system. In the Elseworlds story Batman Holy Terror, the course of history is changed somewhat so that America is basically still part of the Commonwealth. As such, it turns out that the seemingly random mugging and murder of Bruce's parents was not actually so random, and was actually a government hit that was later made to look like a mugging gone wrong. When Reverend Bruce finds out about this, he dons a demon costume that once belonged to his father Thomas and sets out to investigate. He also goes on to find out about government-run human experiments and an alien whom they captured, raised, and later killed with green rocks when he became too hard to control. Poor would-be Superman. Number 9. Gods and Monsters Batman. This version of Batman is not Bruce Wayne, but is instead Kirk Langstrom. In this reality, there is no Bruce Wayne to take up the mantle, and so Kirk ends up with the name himself. Not because he was inspired by a bat smashing through a window, of course, but because he is kind of actually part vampire bat. Kirk was a brilliant scientist who was working on a cure for lymphoma. He eventually figured out how to create this cure using bat saliva and nanotech to strengthen his experimental treatment. However, while it succeeded in curing his cancer, it also turned Kirk into a pseudo-vampire. While he remains a hero and typically only ingests artificially created plasma or even animals' blood, which can also help him to survive, he has also been known to feed on criminals from time to time. He's like, these criminals, nah, I gotta eat, they kinda deserve it, I'm just gonna eat them. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more scary alternate Batman lists, of which, let's be real, there's a lot of scary alternate Batman out there, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Spooky thumbs up, spooky spook. Number 8. DCEU Batman, or Batfleck if you prefer. Ben Affleck's Batman from Batman vs Superman especially is a much darker figure in comparison to the comics, and kind of in comparison to a lot of other Batmen that have been on the big screen. This is a version of the hero who has decided that he is willing to kill when he needs to. All in all, it seems to be implied that the death of Jason Todd is what reshaped Batman's morals here and caused him to readjust his code. Not only does he kill, but he also does something even worse in my opinion, branding some of the worst criminals that he fights against with a literal bat brand. These are the criminals that Batman has deemed to have done something completely unforgivable. And the thing is that people in prison in Gotham also know the significance of the Bat brand, meaning that those who end up with one are basically marked for death. The idea here is that the inmates will carry out the death sentence that Batman has marked them with because they know that whatever this person did, it was one of the worst crimes, otherwise they wouldn't have this brand. So not only is there an extra layer of fear, but this also shows a complete disregard for human life. I mean, at least a disregard for human life when it comes to really terrible criminals. Batman wants these criminals to live in fear, and he doesn't care what happens to them in prison. In fact, he kinda hopes that they end up dead. Number 7. Batman the Silenced. One perfect spine-chilling dark multiverse tale that I have loved, which even comes with its own creepy lullaby, is the Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush. In this story we get a reimagined narrative where Batman's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot, is the one who ends up messing up Bruce's life. Tommy in his adult years allies himself with many of Gotham's villains and more usually anti-hero types after Bruce Wayne ends up in Arkham Asylum, which also was kind of part of his doing. However, Bruce isn't quite as checked out as he's been pretending to be, and he ends up escaping in order to get revenge and taking up the mantle of Batman the Silenced, an alternate version basically of Hush, and of course an alternate version of Batman. Number 6. Vampire Batman. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from from the alternate Earth 43. As his moniker describes, he is a version of Bruce Wayne who transforms into a more literal version of Batman when he becomes a vampire. Batman. Get it? Because vampire bats. Oddly enough, this is also not the only version of Batman in the multiverse that also happens to be a vampire, as you already know, because we talked about Gods and Monsters Batman as well, who's also a vampire. Despite being a vampire on Earth 43, Bruce still fights on the good side, fighting against his vampiric urges to feed on human blood. At least, initially he fights against them. At one point, Vampire Bats asks Alfred to stake him in order to prevent him from giving in to his bloodlust, after he seemingly killed the Joker by draining him of all of his blood. However, a stake through the heart doesn't actually kill Batman here, but simply leaves him in a coma. Months later, Gotham is in a pretty bad place without Batman's presence, and Alfred is forced to awaken him in hopes that Gotham will once more have a savior. Batman does go about taking out criminals, but in a very vampiric way, creating a bloodbath as his time staked and his bodily decay has resulted in the loss of his sanity. So he's there and he's killing criminals, but he's like killing criminals, and it's like a lot.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Merciless, another of the Dark Knights. In an alternate universe in which Ares, the god of war, declared war against all of existence, Batman stood with the rest of the Justice League in a battle that literally lasted for eons, until the sole combatants left in the entire universe were Ares and Batman, still standing through sheer willpower alone. After landing a blow that knocked Ares' magical helmet off, Batman was forced to put the helmet on to finally defeat the God of War, leaving him the only survivor of this burned out universe. This Batman unfortunately became addicted to the power and bloodlust granted to him by the helmet, and joined forces with the rest of the Dark Knights in order to survive the destruction of his universe, going forth to find new worlds for him to become a new God of War against.
Number 4, the Bruce. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the reality belonging to Batman I Joker. Here Batman is a tyrant and a symbol who is worshipped as a god. This is not our own Bruce Wayne, by the way, but like a dystopian, almost cyberpunk future version of the character where the people of Gotham see him as their ruler and god. In fact, I don't even know if this guy's name is actually Bruce Wayne or is Bruce at all. I think he's just a person that's elected and like that's the role you play, or that seized power. The people of Gotham worship him and his mission for vengeance. The whole comic is pretty horrifying to read and reveals how even the best of heroic intentions can be perverted over time. Nothing scarier than just humanity and the way that we think things through and can like take a good idea and make it into something a lot more sinister. That's the scariest thing of them all. Well, almost. There's a few more points. Number 3, Murder Machine. Murder Machine is an alternate version of Bruce Wayne who hails from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -44. Here Bruce Wayne turns to his friend and colleague Cyborg for help, building an AI to supplement Alfred after Bruce's longtime friend, butler, and father figure is tragically murdered. However, this AI is programmed to protect Bruce at all costs, which ends up leading the Alfred Protocol, as it's named here, to take over Bruce, replacing his human body with a mechanical, indestructible, and immortal one, turning Bruce into the Murder Machine. The Alfred Protocol, which Bruce is now fully merged with, also takes away Bruce's ability to feel fear or sadness. I think you know where this is going. It's not going to a good place. In the end, it labels everyone a threat to Bruce and helps him to kill all those who could potentially harm him, including the entire Justice League. Pretty bleak stuff.
Number 2, Azrael. So right after the 1993 Nightfall storyline when Batman got wrecked by Bane, his back was broken, but he decided to pass on the Batman mantle to not Dick Grayson, but instead Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael, aka Azbat. I'm gonna say this is a weird version of Batman because he's a little crazy. This run as Batman wasn't the same at all. His methods were violent, messy, and irresponsible. He was capable of defeating Bane with his new suit and stuff, so he did do a good job. He was a formidable successor in that sense, but definitely not permanent. Once Bruce did recover, he had to force Azbat to leave the position. Even the style changes were quite drastic, and honestly, kind of ugly. Dare I say it? Dare I say it was kind of ugly. He has the blue and yellow armor, the claws, the dual mag weapons. It's cool, but it's nothing like the Caped Crusader we know and love. He's kind of like a Decepticon. I'm like, I don't really like a hot Hot Wheels Decepticon looking guy.
Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Obviously one of the darkest and scariest alternate versions of Batman out there has to be the Batman Who Laughs. This version of Batman is actually like an amalgamation of Joker and Batman, but he is ultimately an alternate of Bruce Wayne, because he is Bruce Wayne, so a little more Bruce really than Joker in the end. He used to fight crime as Batman, but one day Joker took things too far and caused Batman to snap. And not just snap internally, but externally as well, when he actually snapped Joker's neck, killing him. Joker released a special brand of Joker venom with his last breath, which Bruce breathed in. Over time, this venom made him paranoid and homicidal, and ultimately, he became the villain of the story, going so far as to kill all the members of the Bat family. Knowing they would not be able to join him, or not be willing to join him I guess I should say, well, he killed all of them at least except one. His son Damian Wayne was offered a spot at his father's side, and he ended up taking it. Batman then became the insane Batman Who Laughs and set out to conquer and reshape the entire multiverse. Which definitely means you're pretty scary. If you are like, I'm not just gonna take over this world, I'm gonna like go beyond that.
Number 10. Wally West Super 7. Wally West of the Super 7 isn't necessarily darker in terms of actions, it's more so what happens to him in this universe. Don't know what the Super 7 is? Well, it's a team made up of the remaining Justice League members after the League was disbanded because of an evil alien bandit invasion. At first they were able to hold the invaders off, but when the alien leader Grendel issued a decree that every time a metahuman was seen, they would kill 1,000 people, and then 5,000 more when one tried to fight back. A lot of heroes decided to step back from the hero game, but not the Super 7. Wally was one of the few superheroes who dared to continue to fight, but unfortunately for him, his legs were broken and nearly destroyed completely during a riot, leaving him unable to run, which is, kind of his whole thing. Embarrassed and inconsolable, Wally moved to Seattle and took up the new identity of Jay Allen. However, it didn't take long for the Super 7 to find him and convince him to rejoin the fight. Wally is initially reluctant because he can't run anymore, and he reveals that he actually destroyed his own Flash suit, but don't worry, he still wore the Kid Flash ring. Eventually he decides that joining the team once again is the right thing to do. However, it doesn't end too well for him because he winds up getting impaled by a spear while saving the Green Lantern. Check out this sad Wally West for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1994's Adventures of Superman Annual number 6. Number 9. Sela Allen. From the name alone you can probably guess it, but Sela is obviously a descendant of Barry Allen. However, she didn't have any powers. Her father was actually the wielder of the Speed Force, and that led to some pretty unfortunate events. In the year 2231, the Cold-Blooded Blue, who was the rival of her father, managed to capture all 3 of the Allen family, and he crippled Sela and killed her mother while her father was forced to watch. When her father was finally able to save Sela, he took her to the edge of the Speed Force in an attempt to heal her, as the damage done to her body was so extreme, but unfortunately it didn't work. 8 months later, her father was killed while fighting Cobalt Blue, and somehow Sela managed to emerge as a physical form of the Speed Force. While her real body is technically still in the Speed Force, her conscious state exists as a manifestation projecting itself. Although she doesn't have an actual body, she has all the powers of the other members of the Flash family and took up the mantle of the Flash, just like her father and those before him. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with 1999's The Flash, Volume 2, number 146. Number 8. Velocity. Also known as Overtake, this evil clone of Jay Garrick was created by none other than the Brotherhood of Evil and Monsieur Mala and sold to Ratu Brennan, dictator of Mali, and Ratu used him to guard his chemical weapons. With all of the same powers of the Flash minus the actual connection to the Speed Force, Velocity is absolutely not someone you want to go toe to toe with. Not only is he fast, he is incredibly sharp and able to think quickly on his feet, as he has shown that he adapts his fighting style based on the type of opponent he's fighting, and when he's up against teams, he quickly pinpoints the strongest member and takes them out first. He is first unleashed on the Outsiders when they're discovered by Venom. The Speedster comes close to defeating the team when Metamorpho attacks him with acid and manages to overpower him. He's later taken by Green Lantern, who states that the Outsiders cannot be trusted. Give this evil clone story a read for yourself, starting with 2006 Outsiders Volume 3, number 35. Number 7. Brian Mallory. Now, if you're not familiar with the Legends of Dead Earth storyline, it was a grim crossover event spanning across many DC titles that told stories of a possible future where the Earth itself had died long ago and its heroes were gone with it. However, the heroes still left an impression on history, and their stories and legends were passed down in various ways. Many, if not all of these legends, were spread around the universe by the Martian Manhunter himself, as this was his way of honoring the lives of his departed friends. Brian Mallory was one of the lucky few to receive powers from the Martian Manhunter, and he became the Flash of this frozen planet. Now, more specifically, the Mallory family were the receivers of the book and the gift, and it was their duty to pass it down the line to the eldest born son, Brian, as their worship of the Flash's life and the Speed Force allowed him to access the quote-unquote light. the power from which would save and sustain their people. With all the powers you would expect from a member of the Flash family, Brian used these powers to not only avenge his father's deaths, but also to save his people. Check out Brian in his one-off appearance in 1996's The Flash Annual Volume 2, number 9. Number 6. Baroness Blitzkrieg. A member of the Fourth Reich, a team of some German ideological villains, comes Baroness Blitzkrieg, a lesser-known speedster who never really used her powers for good. Alongside Shadow of War, Count Berlin, Baron Gestapo, and Captain Murder, the Fourth Reich was formed by Vandal Savage for the purpose of killing off descendants of the patriotic heroes of the Golden Age. Baroness did her share by targeting and eliminating several of Commander Steel's descendants, and after that she went on to target Stripesy's son, Mike Dugan. Thankfully though, Jay Garrick stepped in before any more blood could be shed. Since she hasn't made many appearances in the comics, we're not 100% sure how fast she is or what other speedster powers she possesses, but by no means does that make her any less evil. Now it's also heavily implied that she's related to Baron Blitzkrieg, an enemy of the Golden Age team of heroes All-Star Squadron, however it's never really been confirmed or denied. Check her out in her first appearance in 2007's Justice Society of America Volume 3, number 2. Number 5. Inertia. Thaddeus Thawne II, aka Inertia, was created by Thaddeus Thawne in the 30th century as a clone of Bart Allen, aka Impulse, mixed with just a little bit of Thawne's genetic material. Now unlike Impulse, who aged at an accelerated rate, Inertia was allowed to develop normally. Growing up, he was brought up to be patient and methodical and was taught by the elder Thawne to hate the Allen family with a burning passion, which ended up happening. I don't know, maybe it's genetic or something. The plan was for Inertia to travel back in time and replace Bart Allen, which you probably guessed didn't work. Thaddeus has the ability to alter time relative to himself rather than using the Speed Force like most of the other DC Universe's speedsters out there. He can apparently use this ability to move at speeds rivaling those of even Wally West, the fastest of the Flashes, and usually faster than the speeds that even Wally can muster in most cases. Since Thaddeus isn't actually moving at super speed, the temporal nature of his speed allows him to avoid the usual problems encountered by the other Flash-type speedsters like friction, seeing and hearing at near light speeds, and more. Although he hasn't made much of a mark during his time in comics, he's still done some pretty bad things, like when he gathered a group of Bart's rogues after Bart became the Flash, who just straight up beat him to a pulp. Check him out for yourself, starting with 1999's Impulse, number 50. Number 4. Hunter Zolomon. The second Reverse Flash, who has also gone by Zoom. Hunter Zolomon was a police profiler who was paralyzed in a battle with Gorilla Grodd. When Wally West refused to go back in time and prevent that accident, Zolomon tried to use Flash's cosmic treadmill to do it himself, resulting in a terrible accident that gave him his time-altering powers that mimic super speed. He also for some reason decided that the reason Wally West wasn't willing to take those necessary risks was that he hadn't endured the type of tragedy that Barry Allen had. Zolomon proceeded on a dark path intent on killing Wally's wife, Linda Park, so that Wally could finally become the hero that he was meant to be. I briefly mentioned this before, but instead of super speed, Hunter was granted time-altering powers that mimic super speed, meaning that he doesn't have a connection to the Speed Force. Instead, he uses something called localized chronokinesis, which is essentially a version of time travel that allows him to travel at speeds that rival Wally West. Unfortunately for him though, he was depowered during the events of Final Crisis, likely preventing us from ever seeing him at his fastest. Now why not give his story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2001's The Flash Secret Files and Origins, number 3. Number 3. Black Racer. Otherwise known as the God of Death, the Black Racer is very similar to the Black Flash in a way because he is the physical manifestation of an aspect of death. What sets him apart from the Black Flash though is that he has one huge advantage. The Black Racer has the ability to possess a host and corrupt that person. This means that the already fast Black Racer can take hold of any of the top speedsters just like he did with Bart Allen that one time. The only thing scarier and faster than an evil Bart Allen is an evil Wally West, which the Black Racer is also fully capable of creating. Heck, even without possessing a speedster, the Black Racer has nearly caught up to the Flash on several occasions using his infamous cosmic skis that allow him to reach some ridiculous speeds. Now unlike most versions of Death, he actually serves a master, which is Darkseid, who has proved more than capable of keeping the Black Racer under his control. Check out the Black Racer in his first appearance in 2015's Justice League Volume 2, number 44. Number 2. Savatar. The self-declared God of War and enemy of the Flash, Savatar is just yet another super speedster in the Flash's rogues gallery. He was once a Cold War pilot and received his powers after his plane was struck by lightning at top speed. Discovering that he could now defeat the enemy by moving at super speed, he became obsessed with speed and named himself Savatar, which is Hindu for God of Motion, and dedicated his life to unlocking its secrets. He honed his powers and achieved abilities that no other speedster had yet mastered, like he learned how to transfer speed into objects and people, as well as how to almost instantaneously simultaneously heal his injuries. Obsessed with gaining more followers, he became the leader of a cult known as the Thunderbolt Agents and used them to his benefit. One time he even gave them the speed of some of the Earth's greatest speedsters. He then sent them to murder Wally West, Max Mercury, and XS, among others. Thankfully though, DC's top speedsters rose to the occasion and were able to apprehend Savatar and his cult as well. Considering how fast and formidable Savatar appears to be, this big baddie is fairly unused. His ability to learn from and manipulate the Speed Force in new ways suggests that his potential has hardly been touched. Check him out for yourself, starting with his very first appearance in 1995's The Flash, Volume 2, number 108. And coming in at number 1, the Reverse Flash. Now since we talked about the other Reverse Flashes, I thought we should talk about the original one, Eobard Thawne. Also known as Professor Zoom, Thawne was once the biggest Flash fanatic to ever live, even going as far as to recreate the reaction that gave Barry his powers, and having an operation done so that he could look just like Barry Allen. He really just wanted nothing more than to meet and befriend his hero. Now his killing tendency came up not long after that when he killed the cashier at the Flash Museum so he could use the holy grail of all Flash memorabilia, the Cosmic Treadmill, to travel back in time to meet his hero. Unfortunately there was a bit of a miscalculation and he ended up appearing several years after Allen's death. Distraught and very upset, Thawne escaped to the Flash Museum to get some answers, only to find out that he was destined to become the Flash's greatest nemesis, Zoom. And needless to say, he didn't really take that news well, and this sent him down a dark path. Capable of basically all of the things that the Flash and his Speed family can do, you know, like time travel, super speed, and electrokinesis, what really sets him apart is his ability to completely negate another's connection to the Speed Force, effectively stripping his fellow speedsters of their power and rendering them useless, honestly. Now if you're not familiar with this legendary speedster, check him out in his first appearance in 1963's The Flash, number 139. Number 10, Speed Demon. Coming to us from the Amalgam Universe, a parallel universe that is composed of mashups of some of our favorite Marvel and DC characters, that was unfortunately destroyed thanks to the cross-multiveral conflict, comes Blaze Allen, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Once a stunt rider working at a carnival, Blaze Allen becomes the Speed Demon following the death of his wife at the hands of the evil Night Spectre. He was convinced by Merlin to bond with the demon known as Etrigan, and from there, the entity known as Speed Demon was born. Granted the abilities of Ghost Rider, including his fiery powers as well as super strength, Speed Demon is not actually all that fast despite his name and lineage. While the character is a formidable fighter and an all-around powerful being, he falls very short in the speed department, especially compared to all the other speedsters. There have been other characters that have taken up this mantle, including both Jay Garrick and Wallace West, however all of their abilities seem to be similar to the originals. Check out Blaze Allen for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1996's Speed Demon, number 1. Number 9, Deceased Flash. Now a member of the anti-living, Barry Allen, formerly known as the hero of the Flash, is exactly what you think he is, a zombified speedster. When the anti-life equation begins spreading worldwide, Barry went into hiding alongside Kid Flash, until they were found by Superman and Green Lantern. Leaving Wally in their more than capable hands, the Flash sped off to the Daily Planet where he encountered an infected Giganta. Thankfully though, she was taken down with a blast to the head from Cyborg. Soon after, we see the Fortress of Solitude turned into a shelter for the uninfected heroes. However, an infected Martian Manhunter was able to make it through, and not only did he kill Lex Luthor by just ripping him in half, he infected the Flash with a scratch to the back as well. Barry immediately ran out of the fortress because he didn't want to hurt or infect anyone else, and it didn't take long for him to become fully infected, and he started attacking the remaining survivors all across the world. He was finally stopped by Superman after the two collided into each other at full force, killing the speedster right then and there, but not before he was able to infect the Man of Steel. Give this storyline a read for yourself, starting with 2019's Deceased, number 1. Number 8, Barry Allen Out of Time. Hailing from a possible future, this iteration of the Flash is a much darker Barry Allen from 20 years in the future. This future Flash first appears in the Flash Annual Volume 4 number 3 as a broken man. Reeling from the death of a close friend and fellow speedster Wally West, Future Flash travels backwards through time on a crusade to murder all the former enemies he deems responsible for West's death, hoping to somehow change the future. His actions only widen a tear in the Speed Force, however, and the once hero ultimately decides to use a present-day Barry Allen's energy to seal the rift, proving his superiority in a one-on-one battle against himself. Because apparently the Flash is like a fine wine and only betters with age, the pair are soon interrupted by the arrival of Wally West. Able to take on both speedsters at once, Future Flash's actions caused the one thing he began his quest to stop: the death of Wally West. Give the storyline a read for yourself, starting with the Flash Annual Volume 4 number 3, and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Number 7, The Rival. Real name Edward Clare, the Rival is the archenemy of the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick, and is one of the oldest speedsters around. Clarence was a professor at the university Jay Garrick went to and believed that he had the know-how and means to recreate the speed formula that gave Jay Garrick his powers in the first place. He was able to develop a drug derivative of the same formula called Velocity 9, and after taking it himself he gained the powers a speedster would have. However, he found out that they were only temporary. He became the criminal that he is because his findings were rejected by his fellow science peers, and decided then to don a darker version of Jay Garrick's costume and commit crimes under the name The Rival. After losing to the Flash the first time, the Rival resurfaced a couple months later, and during his battle with the Flash, he was somehow able to reach light speed and just vanished and was stuck traveling through the Speed Force until he was pulled out by Johnny Sorrow. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1949's Flash Comics number 104. Number 6. Dark Flash. Walter West is essentially an identical version of Wally West, just from another timeline, with their two histories mirroring each other's up until one certain point. Walter's version of Linda Park, the girlfriend/wife of Wally, is killed during a battle with Cobra. Turning him into a very bitter speedster and eventually the Dark Flash, Walter develops an authoritarian zero-tolerance policy for criminals, going so far as to cruelly maim them if they denied his actions and got in his way. Eventually, Walter learned that the love of his life was still alive and well in another timeline, and he set out to defeat Wally West and completely replace him. Able to easily take on his alternate timeline counterpart, Wally, who is often considered the fastest character to take up the Flash mantle, which further extends the parallel between the two. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1999's Chain Lightning finale, Finish Line. Number 5. Johnny Quick. A member of the Crime Syndicate of America, an evil version of the Justice League hailing from Earth 3, Jonathan Allen is Johnny Quick, the Flash of this universe. After conquering the entirety of Earth 3, the Crime Syndicate of America decided to abandon their Earth to terrorize and take over Earth 1 and 2. It took the combined efforts of the Justice League and the Justice Society of America to stop them, although unfortunately for everyone that wasn't the end of their reign of terror. Now, Johnny was initially depicted as being slower than the Flash, however he figured out a way to make up for his shortcomings by developing a helmet that vastly increased his top speed while also deepening his relationship with the Speed Force, making Johnny Quick more than a match for the Flash. Since then, Johnny has shown tremendous command over the Speed Force, defeating countless superheroes in a matter of microseconds in the Forever Evil storyline. It was only after Alexander Luthor, aka Mazza, stole his power that he met his end. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1964's Justice League of America number 29, or feel free to skip ahead to his newer iteration starting with 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 4. The Red Death. Once the hero of Gotham, Bruce Wayne from Earth -52 was forced to seek more extreme approaches to prevent crime after losing all of his Robins. Coming to the conclusion that he wasn't quite fast enough to fight crime, Bruce set his eyes on the Flash, deeming himself more worthy of the Speed Force than Barry Allen, which is pretty presumptuous, but okay, whatever floats your boat. After defeating Barry, Bruce strapped him to the front of the Batmobile and drove them both into the Speed Force using the power of the Batmobile combined with the Cosmic Treadmill. The two merged together and Batman became the Red Death, using his new powers to kill instead of just stopping crime, much to Barry's dismay as his consciousness was still very much alive in Bruce's head. Like all of the Dark Knights of the multiverse, the Red Death represents one of Batman's fears, this one being losing members of the Bat family and his love for them and regret for those he failed. His dialogue and his Speed Force infection also imply he might represent Batman's fear of old age slowing him down as well. Check him out in his first appearance in 2017's Dark Days, the casting, number 1. Number 3. Reverse Flash. No, we're not talking about Eobard Thawne, we're going to be looking at the second Reverse Flash, Daniel West. Daniel ran away from home at an early age because of his abusive and drunk father, and by the time he was 18, he had fallen into the wrong crowd and was a small-time thug. All he wanted more than anything was to mend his relationship with his sister Iris, but after his first attempt, he was thwarted by the Flash and sent to jail for 5 years. When he got out, he wanted nothing more than to kill his abusive father because he felt that was the only way he could make amends with his sister, and gained his Speed Force powers that allowed him to travel back in time after a monorail crashed, and from then on he called himself the Reverse Flash and killed anyone who had a connection to the Speed Force so that he could drain their power. It got to the point where the only two left with a connection to the Speed Force were the Flash and Iris West, and Daniel was able to go back in time to attempt to kill his father. However, it didn't really work out, because his younger self and Iris caught him in the act. He then realized the error of his ways and turned his powers over to the Flash, who set everything right once again. Check out this Reverse Flash for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2012's The Flash, Volume 4, number 0. Number 2. Black Flash. They say death eventually catches us all, but what happens when you're too fast even for death itself? Well, that's where the Black Flash comes in. Easily one of the most mysterious entities in the DC universe, Black Flash is a symbol of death for speedsters across the multiverse, appearing just before the death of every significant speedster. Able to easily keep pace with the fastest beings in existence, it seems death really is impossible to outrun, even for speedsters. The Black Flash first made an appearance when Wally West seemingly cheated death by using his speedster powers to escape the inevitable. When the Black Flash realized he needed a human host to properly function, he chose Linda Park as his host. After Flash Rebirth brought back Barry Allen from the dead, he also noticed that the Speed Force was changing him, and it was revealed that the Reverse Flash's actions had mutilated the Speed Force and was turning Barry Allen, its avatar, into the Black Flash itself, the entity that could turn any speedster to dust just by touching him. The current host of the Black Flash mantle is Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash. Check out this Horseman of Death for yourself, starting with 1998's The Flash, Volume 2, number 138. Number 1, Godspeed. August Hart was the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash, so while going after a criminal organization called the Black Hole, August was struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. He became the Flash's quote-unquote partner, but in secret. August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got his revenge on who he suspected to be his brother's killer. Godspeed is basically what the Flash would be if Barry Allen had one bad day. The Flash refrains from using his lethal force, but Godspeed doesn't at all. Godspeed's argument is that Central City would have been a much safer place had the Flash shown some bloodlust. He proves this point when he kills Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, who didn't have any speedster powers at the time. Thawne did get his revenge eventually though, because after Barry brings back Thawne via time travel, that Thawne kills August. Man, keeping up with that whole time travel and speedster thing is so tough. Either way, Godspeed is one of the most deadly and dangerous enemies the Flash has ever had to race against. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2016's The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, number 1. Number 10, Red Sun Superman. Answer me this, have you ever wondered what would happen if Superman didn't have that good and wholesome upbringing and was raised somewhere else, like I don't know, let's say the Soviet Union? Well, wonder no longer, because that is exactly what happens in the comic book miniseries Superman Red Sun. Instead of his ship crash landing in Kansas, Superman lands in the Ukraine in the middle of the Cold War. In the story, Superman is raised with the ideals that the Soviet Union instills in him, and the world feels a sense of fear as a superpowered alien is the Soviets' new secret weapon. He still has all the powers you associate with Superman because he is still exposed to the yellow sun. With the passion and sense of justice we've come to expect from Superman, Soviet Superman was so dedicated to his country, which made him incredibly dangerous for the wrong reasons, because he was a living weapon that the Soviets used to spread their power throughout the globe. Over the course of about 20 years, he traveled the world with Wonder Woman, converting other nations and even becoming their new leader. He was a good leader, don't get me wrong, because he is still Superman, it was just for a very bad world. Highly recommend you check out this alternate Superman for yourself, starting with 2003's Superman Red Sun Volume 1, number 1. Number 9, Ultraman. Similar to our Superman's origin story, this iteration was sent from the planet Krypton to Earth 3. However, it's not really stated why, since Krypton didn't explode in this universe. On his way to Earth 3, he first came into contact with kryptonite, which started the change in his body that turned him into the superpowered powerhouse that we know. And since then, every time he came in contact with kryptonite, he only grew stronger. After becoming an adult, he renamed himself Ultraman, and this is where he vastly differs from our Superman, because he became a brutal authoritarian and ruthlessly rules his version of the Justice League called the Crime Syndicate, conquering most of the world with their help. After largely conquering most of the world, Ultraman developed a new type of supervision that allowed him to see into the Earth 1 dimension. Seeking an open battle to test their powers after defeating the military forces of their native Earth 3, the Crime Syndicate challenged the combined forces of the Earth 1 Justice League of America and Earth 2 Justice Society of America. Not able to withstand the combined might of two Earth's greatest super beings, the Crime Syndicate was defeated and imprisoned in an extra-dimensional bubble created by the Earth 1 Green Lantern. Ultraman is a perfect example of someone who has all the power but isn't happy. Hailing from an Earth where evil always wins, Ultraman is always looking for something new to conquer, torment, or honestly both. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance all the way back in 1964's Justice League of America, number 29. Number 8, Overman. Hailing from Earth 10, a universe where the Germans won World War II, we have Overman, the leader of the new Reichman and the Superman of this Earth. Kal-El was sent to Earth 10 as a baby in a ship away from the planet Krypton because it was dying. Pretty standard Superman origin, however, much like the Red Sun Superman, he was raised by the wrong people. Alongside the German forces, Overman conquered the world in, I want to say, less than 20 years, after which he decided to leave the Earth for a while. 3 years later, he returned with a clear head and saw all the damage he helped cause and became an advocate against all of what he once stood for, while still working alongside them for some reason. Eventually, German scientists used Kal cells to create a clone of him known as Overgirl that Overman learned to love like family. However, she died not too long after her creation, and that hit him hard. Inconsolable and grief-stricken, Overman leaked some precious information to the freedom fighters that resulted in the demise of the new Reichman and Metropolis. Check out probably one of the saddest Superman stories I've ever heard of, starting with 2015's The Multiversity Guidebook number 1. Number 7, the Eradicator. Existing on New Earth, the Eradicator was an ancient Kryptonian weapon merged with a human body to form the last son of Krypton, an extreme vigilante who surfaced after the death of Superman. The Eradicator was given to Superman while on Warworld, and it began its work again on Earth, creating the Fortress of Solitude and trying to manipulate Superman into becoming the ideal Kryptonian. When it failed, the Eradicator created a new body for itself based on Superman. The Eradicator had all of Superman's memories, even though it wasn't actually the real Superman, but was far more brutal and violent. It didn't actually have the power to absorb solar radiation, so it relied on Superman's body to transfer energy to it. Over the years, it became more compassionate and even fought alongside Superman in a few fights, the most notable being their fight against Cyborg Superman, and even sacrificed itself to save Earth, but it always remained dedicated to preserving Superman and Kryptonian life. In DC's Rebirth continuity, the Eradicator has returned and it's just as dangerous as ever, so why not take a look at the Superman clone story for yourself, starting with their first appearance in 1989's Action Comics Annual number 2 all the way to 2011's Action Comics number 901. Number 6. Black Zero. This is actually the third Black Zero. This was an alternate version of Superboy known as Superman 2 from a hyper time stream in which Superman had not returned to life and his clone had been left to fully mature and develop his full Kryptonian powers in addition to some tactile telekinesis. With this new power, he could create a field around himself that made him invulnerable, allowed him to fly, and also move heavy objects, similar to Superman's strength. Superman 2 tried to fight crime, but ended up losing a battle that cost its life, leading to a backlash against human cloning. He decided to rename himself after the pro-cloning organization on Krypton, Black Zero, and fight for clone rights. He used Project Cadmus to kill off most of the world's superheroes and recreated most of them as clones of the originals, but that wasn't enough for him. He entered Hypertime, a cross between a time stream and the multiverse during an era where DC Comics only consisted of one universe, to travel to other realities to fight for clone rights as well. Black Zero was a fanatical and ruthless warrior who was eventually and thankfully stopped by the combined strength of numerous Superboys from across Hypertime. Appearing across only a few issues, this is a short story that is definitely worth a read, so if you feel like it, check out 1999 Superboy Volume 4 number 61 to 64. Number 5. Superdoom. After a trip to Tibet, Clark, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen built a machine that used vibrations to bring thoughts into reality, and the best possible use for it in their eyes was to create a Superman that was a thought-powered redeemer capable of saving the world. Unfortunately, they ended up having to sell the machine to Overcorp, and Overcorp took their Superman idea and twisted it so much that the brutal and toxic Superdoom was born. A self-described killer franchise, Superdoom wasted no time in becoming the preeminent superhuman of its world, and sought out to eliminate any form of competition, meaning he was on the hunt for other Supermen. After ravaging countless parallel planets and butchering numerous Superman and Superman-like adjacent people, it finally tracked down its creators to Earth 23, where it killed Jimmy and mortally wounded Clark. Later, Superdoom was summoned to Prime Earth by an unwilling Lex Luthor as a final doomsday weapon against Superman, and after a brutal struggle, Superman overcame the monster, which, upon defeat, transformed into a bomb that Superman managed to place on the dark side of the moon before detonation, seemingly annihilating Superdoom once and for all. Give the story a read for yourself, starting with 2012's Action Comics Volume 2, number 9. Number 4. Superman Earth 1198. In Superman the Dark Side, the baby Kal-El ship is diverted on its path to Earth and instead lands on the planet Apokolips, home of the Overlord Darkseid. In this version of Superman, Darkseid is the one to raise him, and Superman becomes his loyal and devoted disciple and helps him in the destruction of New Genesis. As well as this, Superman doesn't grow up to wear tights and a cape. Instead, he opts for a menacing black and red armor with a lightning bolt S across his chest. Not only is this Superman powerful, evil, and terrifying, he also has a thing for weapons, using the Apocalyptian sword and Omega Warhead, as well as anything he can get his hands on. Superman in this story is more of a pawn for Darkseid than inherently evil, but much like the others, his actions have horrific consequences. With his direct and indirect help, Darkseid managed to extract the anti-life equation from Superman's cells and subjugated the world and expanded his reach. With Earth by his side and a yellow sun to power him up, Superman was forced to fight Darkseid to end his reign of terror. Highly recommend you check out this 3-issue run for yourself, starting with 1998 Superman Darkseid number 1. Number 3. Cyborg Superman. Now, there have been two major characters that have become Cyborg Superman. The first and most famous is the astronaut Hank Henshaw. When a solar flare hit Henshaw's spacecraft during a space experiment, he and his crew started to mutate. The mutation was so strong that once back on Earth, Henshaw's crew, along with his wife, all committed suicide. Before Henshaw's body disintegrates from the solar flare, he is able to upload his mind using NASA equipment. With the help of the birthing matrix that was used to send Superman to Earth, Henshaw creates a cyborg body with all the powers that Superman has. After this, Henshaw finds out that Superman had thrown the Eradicator into the sun, which caused the original solar flare. Blaming Superman for everything, the newly formed Cyborg Superman seeks revenge on the Man of Steel. To destroy the real Superman's reputation, Cyborg Superman tried to use a nuclear bomb to destroy Metropolis. He was defeated because that's what happens when you go up against Superman, but used his powers to inhabit machines to return over and over and over again, once even conquering most of the planet Apocalypse. After his ultimate defeat, he was taken in by Sinestro during the Sinestro Corps War, making him even more powerful than ever. Since the New 52 era, Cyborg Superman has been revamped as having been the father of Supergirl, Zor-El, who survived Krypton's destruction only to have been transformed into the villain he is today. Why not give Hank's story a read for yourself, starting with 1990's Adventures of Superman number 466. Number 2, Lord Superman. This alternate Superman doesn't have any roots with comics. He is actually from the Justice League TV series, specifically 2003's episode A Better World, and is one of the first Dark Superman that we've seen in the animated universe. This Superman lost his way in battle with President Lex Luthor after Luthor executed the Flash in front of him, and mocked the Man of Steel for never being able to see things through to their logical conclusion. Superman, overcome with rage, executed Luthor with his heat vision, took over the world with his Justice League's help, and formed the Justice Lord's crime-free regiment. They saw themselves as the world's saviors, and the Terror was a small price to pay to realize their vision. Of course, when they found an alternate Earth, they immediately imagined all the quote-unquote good they could have done there, and Lord Superman's incredible powers would have let him succeed on this new Earth if it weren't for the regular Superman, who managed to defeat the Justice Lord before it was too late. I think the worst thing about Justice Lord Superman is that he truly thought he was doing the right thing, but we all know for a fact that he wasn't. Check out this 2-part episode for yourself and let me know what you think in the comments below. And finally, number 1, Injustice Superman. Before I dive more into this one, I have to say that I love the Injustice games so much. I remember when I first got the game and I did not put it down until I was finished with the story, so comment below who your go-to character is. In Injustice 1, I'd have to say mine is either Nightwing or Batman, but in Injustice 2, it has to be Green Arrow or Scarecrow. Anyways, sorry about that, let's talk about Injustice Superman. In a storyline amalgamated from diverse comic plots along with the Justice League animated 2-parter, A Better World, that I just talked about, the Joker sadistically fear gasses Superman into killing Lois Lane. Superman responds by putting his open hand straight through the clown's chest and turns the world into a dictatorship-like police state. In the process, he doxes Batman, murders Shazam and Martian Manhunter, converts the Justice League into his personal secret police, and gets his butt kicked by Alfred Pennyworth. He's finally defeated by a still good Superman from another universe who encases him in a red sunlight generating capsule. Now, there have been a few storylines over the years that have revolved around the idea of what would happen if Superman went bad and whether anyone could stop him, and this just proves that the only man who can take down Superman is Superman himself. Why not play the games again for yourself to refresh your memory, or check out 2013's Injustice Gods Among Us number 1.
Number 10, the new Red and Blue. Superman 162 was an imaginary tale where Superman splits himself into 2 parts to be more productive. Superman Red and Superman Blue. They were great. They both did a bang-up job fixing up cities, saving the day. The love triangle that was happening in Superman comics was also fixed. Superman Blue married Lana, Superman Red married Lois. They did a joint wedding. It was all smiles. And then way later in 1998, we got to see another version of this story play out, only it wasn't as fun and carefree. Here, Superman lost some of his solar powers and instead developed energy-based ones. In order to contain said energy, Supes needed a new blue and white suit. Those new powers allowed for Superman to sense radioactivity, electricity, magnetic forces, and then he would absorb a lot of this power at the same time. When Cyborg Superman teamed up with Toyman, he split the new Supes into 2 and his personality was also separated. Blue Superman wanted to think things through, come up with a plan, whereas Red Superman, well, he was literally red hot. He wanted to take action. Both of these guys ended up loving Lois Lane, so there's no split wedding this time around. In fact, Lois got so sick of both of them, she kicked them out. Imagine saying no to 2 Supermen, you're like, no and no. Not you guys, get out of here. The guys then decided to have a race, because that's what mattered at that point. Sure. You know what does matter though? If you click those thumbs up. Yeah, those likes go a long way for the studio, and if you're not already subscribed, take off your jacket, stay a while. It's nice here, I promise. Number 9, Super Santa. He sees you when you're sleeping, and he has a quadruple barrel Gatling gun. How lovely. This 1995 Elseworld story puts Superman in a post-apocalyptic future where he has to go toe-to-toe with these crazy, mutated army of Batmen. The world is much darker than the one we know now. I mean, literally, these nuclear fallouts have left Superman without his UV rays. Good old lack of sunlight. No tans for you. So he hits the gym, updates his naughty list, and when the crazy gang called the DNA Dictators, with a K instead of a C, rob Bruce Wayne's grave and make a monster Batman, only one man can save us all: Super Santa. Number 8, Super Soldier. Coming from the Amalgam Universe, first appearing in Marvel vs. DC issue 3, fans in the 90s got to see these two comic book powerhouses join forces, making these lovely mashups of characters from each universe, origin stories interconnected. It's a great time. In this story, Clark had no pre-existing powers until the Super Soldier Serum came along. We're seeing the two worlds already collide. He had pretty much won the war single-handedly back in 1942 after this, but then he came along Ultra Metello, this massive evil robot sent in, of course, by Lex Luthor. That's when Super Soldier sacrificed his life taking down the villain, and it wasn't until 50 years later that the JLA found his frozen body. But even then, 50 years later, Lex Luthor was still alive. He was keeping it young with some handy-dandy green K meteorite. That must be what Jennifer Aniston uses. Super Soldier ended up taking down Ultra Metello, and in turn, Lex was arrested. We love happy endings. No beards or Gatling guns this time around. We're on the right track. Number 7, Boxer Superman. I feel like nowadays it's all about celebrity boxing matches. Every other weekend it's someone fighting Lil Baby or whatever, one Logan Paul brother is fighting a robot. This next one might be a thing that actually happens, who knows anymore. Coming from Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams back in 1978, part of the all-new Collector's Edition, basically this alien named Ratlar, who is part of a species known as the Scrub, visits Earth, and demands that we pick our best fighter to go against theirs. Ratlar woke up and chose violence. Okay, cool. So they picked their scrapper, and it of course was the ever so fearsome behemoth Hunya. Alright, great. Now if we refuse this after-school space fight, the Scrub will destroy our planet. So Muhammad Ali argues that since Superman technically isn't from Earth, he must be the one instead who fights. Guy's literally a champ. And he's absolutely correct, he has a point. Ratlar is actually amused by this, so he thinks, you know what, instead, why don't you both just fight each other? That ought to be entertaining, right? The fight is set to take place on Bodace, which is orbiting a red star, so it's actually a fair boxing match at this point. No powers for Clark. So Muhammad Ali trains Superman to become a professional boxer in just a few months' time. The fight is then broadcasted intergalactically, millions tune in, pay-per-view probably charged so much for the match, and then Superman gets beat by Muhammad Ali. How amazing is this? Not only that, Ali continues to take on the behemoth as well, knocking him down in the 4th round. He's the greatest in all of the cosmos, or as Muhammad Ali says, they're both the greatest. Okay, so sweet. Number 6, Super Ant-Man. Not from the Amalgam Universe, but dangerously close to it. From Action Comics issue 296, called The Invasion of Ants, we see Superman rocking a different but nice look. So at first we see him and he's on the side of a building with an ant mask, head on, and he's asking for other giant ants to follow him, even making buzz noises to furthermore convince the ants. Okay, what the hell's going on here? Well, after a colony of giant ants were mutated from a nuclear war on another planet, they decided to come check out Earth, as if we didn't have enough ants already. So Superman comes by to save the day, and he figures out that if he uses red kryptonite radiation, he can give himself an ant's head and then communicate with them. If this one isn't considered weird, well, maybe the next one will get you. Number 5, Centaur Superman. Superman Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy, was an issue released back in 1996, and it's a 4-part Elseworlds miniseries that shows us a world where the Germans ended up winning World War II. It's an odd future, to say the least. Bruce Wayne is now the president, and once Cersei sends out her squad to kidnap Lana Lang, Clark and Lois then have to fly to Europe to save her. Clark didn't even use his powers either, he just booked a normal human Southwest flight. Gotta ride in style, I guess, no matter what the odds are. So during this flight, however, trouble came back around for them and the plane went down over Germany. The goddess Athena then turned Lois into Wonder Woman, where she would then go toe-to-toe with the Diana Wonder Woman, who in this story was on the bad side. And as for Clark, when the plane went down, Cersei turned him into a centaur. Just a handsome half-man, half-horse, noble steed. Now of course, looking the way he did, all these other ladies, centaur ladies, were racing over to meet this dashing man. After they all introduced themselves to each other and shake hoofs, all that good stuff, they would then just raid towns and party hard. This is a horrible time for Lois, like she's fighting for her life, and Clark is just prancing around like he's on season 7 of Bachelor in Paradise. He's loving this. Number 4, Super Menace. Coming from Superman issue 137 titled The Super Brat from Krypton, Surprise, Kal-El has a clone. So when Jor-El shot Kal-El into space after the destruction of Krypton, that ship ended up hitting a derelict space satellite, and then he was duplicated. So the one craft was found by criminals named Derek and Bonnie, and they see this as a golden opportunity to raise another super sidekick, especially one with all the abilities that Clark has. Later on, a kryptonite meteor crashes into Earth, and the criminal couple realizes that it doesn't affect the young clone. He grows up in secret, waiting to make his grand entrance as the Super Menace. First things first, let's take care of that other guy though, shall we? He fights the Superman, they fight, and when Superman uses his X-ray vision, he notices something is odd about his foe. And then suddenly, Super Menace makes it rain kryptonite meteors. This of course almost kills Superman, until Super Menace decides, you know what, I don't want to be a Super Menace anymore. We love a good change of heart. He saves Superman, he handles his criminal parents, and then he flies off to return back to his natural state of energy and becomes one with the universe. Number 3, Karkan the Mighty. Coming from Superboy issue 183, Karkan was raised by gorillas, Karkan being Kal-El. His ship ended up landing in the jungles of Africa, and he realized that he's different from the others after he learns how to fly. It's basically Tarzan if he was Superman, hence why his name is a combination of both. This version is quite super, literally. I mean, when he's not swinging through vines and hucking his own poop at people, he's saving hundreds of animals from floods. How lovely. Even if it means carrying them by their ears, whatever it takes. He does try his luck in the big city though afterwards, but obviously being raised by gorillas, he had a tough time fitting in. Honestly, good. Fitting in is overrated anyways. If you want to do backflips in the jungle, just go for it. Number 2. Bizarro Superman. First appearing in Superboy issue 68, Bizarro Superman is, as his name suggests, bizarre. He's a man of steel but with the opposite intentions, and his powers are also opposites. Instead of breathing icy cold dad breath, he can now breathe fire, like a dragon. Now he has laser ice eyes too, it's pretty fun. The interactions with Superboy are fun. Bizarro Superman throws Clark across the deck of a pool, and he has to like fly his way casually and steer into the pool to blend in. It's honestly trouble. It's kind of like the Iron Giant, but like crazier? The new 52 version of Bizarro was created when Lex Luthor tried to clone Superman, and instead of waiting 10 years for the project to be completed, Lex released him after 5 years, so in turn now he has his pale, but still jacked look. We love Bizarro Superman, honestly. He's like a Frankenstein that can bench press 1,000 pounds. It's pretty fun. And finally, number 1. Lex-El. Appearing only in Superman issues 230 and 231, we find Lex-El born on the planet Krypton instead of Clark. So Superman, but bald. Super Caillou, basically. His hair loss at such a young age is actually explained in the comic because when he was really young, Lex-El's father, Jor-El, held his head next to kryptonite as a punishment. So it's actually pretty tragic. When Lex and his father did crash land on Earth after fleeing their doomed planet, the rocket distracted Martha and Jonathan Kent, who were bank robbers in the story, and they couldn't see, so they ended up crashing. So that's Clark's life here. His parents died in that crash, and Lex-El grew up to become Superman. It's a fun one-off story. We get to see Clark take out Jor-El and then go on a crime spree. Just a total flip in characteristics. Also, bonus points for Lex wearing a wig on his off time to hide his secret identity. Way more committed to the cause than Clark and his normal reading glasses. Number 10, the football game. To kick off this list, pun intended, we go back to the golden age of comics with Jay Barrick to Flash Comics issue 1. So back in the 50s, the issue opens up with Jay trying to get the attention of Joan, but she's not interested, all because he sucks at football. In her words, she even says, "A man of your build and brains could be a star." Both tridents hurt. Oh no, whatever shall we do? Haha. And then in comes the super speedster just to ruin the game for the rest of the guys who've trained for like 16 years of their life to get there. And I love how happy he is too at this moment. Like he's clearly been waiting for this his entire life. Like he just flies through touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. One guy on the other team has the right idea. He straight up quits. And the game ends being 65-30. I mean, save some action for the rest of us, Jay. We warmed up for like 2 hours, come on. And before we move on to number 9, guys, if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps us a lot here, and it's right there. It's right somewhere down there, it's that one. It looks like a hand with a thumb, it's hard to miss. All right, thank you, now back to the list. Number 9, Super Kids. Nothing beats a family outing. Either that means a trip to the movies or battling monsters with your super kids. That's right, once Wally West and his family returned from a fun little Speed Force trip, his kids had powers. How fun. Now, being so young, there's the Incredibles type question. Should they be allowed to be superheroes? Well, in The Flash Volume 2, issue 233, Wally comes up with the mindset that speedsters age differently, and sometimes it's hard to understand how much longer they have to live. So Wally thinks it's best to let them do what they want because YOLO, am I right? And it's a pretty cute issue, like the kids are eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, trying to fuel up for the fight. In the first few pages, Iris even admits that she stole the sandwich from a fat kid, so everybody wins. Those are her words, not mine. God, I should add another point to this list just for that line. What a savage. Number 8, the loop of life. Everybody has that one memory they wish they could just delete from their brain. Like maybe you were late for work and then you spilled your coffee all over your lovely flannel shirt. Now, what if you had to relive that nightmare over and over, Groundhog Day style? Well, that's what happens to Zoom. In Flash issue 200, Wally West uses his powers to defeat him, but he freezes him and makes him repeat the worst day of his life over and over and over again. Now, this is why I want to be a speedster. This issue right here. I would love to do this. I would just make everybody chill out in their favorite memory and just kind of lay low. Maybe a couple I'd put in some embarrassing memories, you know? Of course, I mean, I'm a human. Like, he looks like he's in so much pain. You could just tell by the dramatic one teardrop. This is literal hell that he's in. He just sits and repeats the line, "He doesn't have a gun, trust me, Ashley," over and over. Poor Hunter Zolomon. I mean, he's not the best guy in the world, but you can't help for feeling somewhat bad. I mean, he's a human. And number 7, more mind games. Yes, of course, we go back to that same issue, Flash 200, where he puts forth this amazing plan to mess with everybody's mind. So now at this point, the Flash thinks, you know what, it's probably best if everybody just forgets who he is. Not too bad of an idea. So he gets some help from the Spectre and Hal Jordan. They talk it out, and Wally figures if he mind wipes everybody, all will be good. Bang bang, boom. Well, Wally ends up forgetting who the Flash is as well, for a short amount of time. So with everybody not knowing about the Flash causes the opposite reaction. There's more crime. No speedsters in the way? Heh, let's go rob some shit. And number 6, death is cool. Flash Comics issue 1, this time it's in the shape of Jay Garrick. So Flash decides it's a smart idea to go and attack a group of villains. Now at this point it's early in the comics and he's just now buckling down with the responsibilities of his new powers. So he goes, I'll go after them, let's do it. So what does he do? He ends up in a chase with a villain named Sir Satan. Cool name. And then he runs his car off the road, literally runs it off the road. Then there he was in terrible shape in the burning car, and Jay, furthermore wanting to take on the superhero responsibilities, decides not to help but to rather just look cool. Like at least collect his teeth off the dashboard first, you know? Fix his hair, maybe ask him if he needs a band-aid or two. I get it though. If I took down a supervillain, I'd probably talk some shit. I'd do monologues. I would do like Shakespeare monologues while he's burning in his car. And number 5, Prison Break. We go now to the Flash 164 from 1987, and the cover of the page shows Flash being put in the slammer. Ooh, the Flash is stuck in this mirror dimension where he doesn't exist, so there's a lot of questions floating around for the Flash. Now, instead of using his super speed to exit the station and figure out a game plan, he super kicks everybody's ass. I mean, this world thinks that all superheroes are evil. Way to prove their point right off the bat. The Flash even says, I gotta keep my cool, no matter where I am, I'm not gonna scrap with police. And then he immediately hoofs one of them in the jaw, breaking the shield guard on his mask. Number 4, ignoring a call for help. Flash 89 in 1994 Volume 2, Wally West was involved in a civil lawsuit. Ooh. The plaintiff, Allison Armitage, was injured so badly while Wally was out kicking ass that she ended up having to get her legs amputated. That's how bad this ended up. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, she said Wally West ignored her when she cried out for help. That of course caused her injury. She wanted $20 million for the whole case. Allison's lawyer was none other than the villain Abracadabra. So Wally thinks that there's something fishy going on, and the Barry Allen Foundation made an agreement that Wally can't use the Flash outfit or persona. Quite the punishment if you ask me, jeez. You're grounded, bucko. But don't worry, him and Allison come to an agreement in the next issue, but regaining the ability to walk was not included in said agreement. Now the best part of this issue has to be the court scene. The Flash goes nuts. He's asked if he did everything he could, and he's like, I'm fast as lightning. And they're like, yes, but did you do what you could? And he's like, I'm super fast though. I don't know. And number 3, killed Reverse Flash. Flash issue 324, we have the Trial of the Flash storyline, and the cover of the issue is enough to make you want to pick it up and take a peek. We find Barry as he sets for holy matrimony with Fiona Webb. Now, leading up to what's supposed to be the happiest day of your life, Reverse Flash starts leaving creepy messages for Barry. One message literally spells out in big letters, "Guess who's gonna kill your wife again?" with a question mark that looks like a 2. Maybe he's going too fast, he couldn't do it. Yeah, Reverse Flash had done that previously, but this time, he doesn't just punch him in the head a few times and talk smack. No, this time, he changes it up a bit and breaks his neck. And afterwards, Barry was arrested. The police officer comes in and literally says, "Oh, I don't like the angle of that neck." He's like, "Hey, I've seen some necks in my time, rookie. That's a bent neck." I sleep on this neck quite funny, so whenever I see bent necks, I'm always like, ooh, I feel like the bent neck lady. Now, of course, it was an accident, but it still happened, and it's still pretty violent, so you gotta include it. And number 2, Immobile Inertia. So at the start of this video, I mentioned the name Bart Allen. Bart is the grandson of Barry Allen. Now, at this time, there's nobody like Barry or Wally to take the mantle of the Flash. He skipped the whole teenage years thing and went right to being an adult. Speedsters are wild, thus becoming the Flash for a small amount of time. Because the evil speedster Inertia, aka Thaddeus Thawne, killed Bart Allen. This evil clone of Bart Allen is responsible for him being gunned down. So when Wally West returned, he was pretty angry. But instead of killing him, he freezes Inertia, making him this sentient statue, and added to the Flash Museum, just blinking and breathing for eternity. Of course, staring at Bart Allen the whole time. Quite the punishment, I like it. I'm here for it, as the kids would say. And finally, number 1. Flashpoint. One of the biggest upcoming DC movies, and for good reason, the Flashpoint storyline, where the Flash tries to go back in time to save his mother from dying her tragic death. Not a bad idea at all. I'd probably try and do that too. This story was released in 2011, written by Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert, and starts with Barry waking up with no Flash powers. Interesting. In fact, the Flash doesn't even exist. Everything has changed. His mother, Nora, was still alive. Score! And his father, Henry, died 3 years prior. Not score. Yeah, in his own timeline, his father's actually alive. He's just in jail. There's no Justice League at this point, and Superman isn't even in the picture. The best part? And one plot point that we're most looking forward to is that Batman in this universe is actually Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father. So Bruce ended up dying that night instead of his parents. So this caused his mother Martha to go insane, and then she ended up becoming the Joker, and that's why during the opening credits of Batman vs Superman, we're all hyped in the audience because we see Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohen, 2 amazing actors in such a small opening scene with no dialogue. Interesting. Now, with recent news of Michael Keaton set to return in that storyline, Jeffrey Dean Morgan took to the internet and said, "Michael Keaton swooped in and took my gig." Nah, I think that's super cool. Ever since Zack Snyder walked away, my whole kind of bit in that world has walked away with him. However, there's always a chat going on. God, I hope Jeffrey Dean Morgan would be the best dark Batman. We've kind of been waiting for a long time. Just do it, just do it. So we shall see, fingers crossed. I think that movie's coming out June 2nd, 2022. For now, I mean, let's all wear masks. Maybe we'll see it sooner. Just an idea.
Number 10, Gorilla Grodd. The new 52 version of Gorilla Grodd is even known for being speedy. Ugh, I love Gorilla Grodd as a Flash villain. It's just, I love all the comic book apes and monkeys, I think. They're just so great. I could do a whole list on Marvel's Hit Monkey, just saying. Gorilla Grodd ended up being charged with the Speed Force and finding a way to tap into it. Initially, his connection to the Speed Force is shown as being much more limited than traditional speedsters and can easily become depleted, requiring him to find more energy to basically charge back up with. However, after being trapped within the Speed Force and escaping, his connection to it and just his overall power in general was improved. It should be noted, however, that even his connection was not entirely stable. Gorilla Grodd's super speed powers have tended to fluctuate throughout his prime Earth history. Sometimes he has them, sometimes he doesn't. Number 9, Christina Molotova. I wanted to call everyone by their aliases here on this list, but then I realized while Christina's main alias is Lady Flash, she's also had a lot of other names that have pretty much been tied to all of the men that she's allied herself with, such as Lady Savage and Lady Savatar. I'm not really here for that, and I also thought it might be easier to just call her by her own real name to prevent any confusion besides as we get into her whole story. It's kind of crazy how many people she has followed and just kind of decided that she'd be the lady version of. Christina started out as a member of the Soviet Union's Blue Trinity, who was given a serum as a child that granted her super speed, but only while using that serum. Her team would later end up being sold to Vandal Savage, who got her addicted to Velocity 9, basically another super speed granting serum. However, while up till that point, she relied on substances to grant her super speed. She would later come to ally herself with Savatar, whom she'd remain loyal to because he actually transferred Speed Force powers to Christina, basically freeing her from her addiction, which I think is a pretty understandable reason to want to be loyal to someone. Like, even though Savatar is a bad guy, that's kind of a cool thing that he did. Unfortunately, while her Speed Force powers were finally legit, she ended up dying alongside her leader Savatar by the touch of Barry Allen's The Flash. And if you're like, how did a touch kill her? You can go back and read about it, but basically people got touched and they got disintegrated. I don't think Barry Allen meant to do that. He wasn't like, haha, you're dead. That'd be very villainous of him. Number 8. Negative Flash. Negative Flash was also known as the hero Fast Track. She was one of the new speedsters to join the ranks after the Speed Force storm that touched down on Central City, granting many people Speed Force powers. However, she would end up being pulled into the villainous organization known as Black Hole, turning her into a villain. Negative Flash, aka Fast Track, aka Mina DeWan's powers were initially connected to the Speed Force, but became connected to the negative Speed Force additionally when she absorbed that negative Speed Force energy from within Barry Allen. Mina was shown to be fast enough to keep up with Barry Allen, and could possibly even keep up with Godspeed. Number 7. Reverse Flash. The Reverse Flash we are talking about here is Daniel West. Daniel West was the uncle of Wally West and the brother of Iris West. He had a rough childhood to say the least, which ended up culminating in a breaking point for young Daniel, who after his constant mistreatment by his father ended up pushing him down the stairs in retaliation. As a result, his father would never be able to walk again, and Iris would come to resent her brother, believing he had taken things way too far, despite always previously being there to defend him. Daniel West would end up fixating forever on this past mistake and believe the best way to fix what had happened would be to kill Iris and Daniel's father before the event occurred. In order to enact this plan, he would need to travel back in time, which is where speedsters came in. Daniel found a way to siphon the Speed Force energy from speedsters, effectively killing them, in order to store up enough of a charge to transport himself back in time. This put him in direct conflict with the Flash, Barry Allen. Daniel's speed powers are impressive, but they don't make him nearly as fast as some of the other fastest speedster heroes out there. Also, like Christina, he's dead now, so I was like, if people are dead, should I put them low? Because they're technically dead now. But I think I'm just gonna consider this like peak speeds. Peak speeds is what we're talking about, friends. And before we move on to this next spot on the list, just a quick reminder to hit that like, comment, subscribe, do all the cool stuff. It makes you cooler, and it definitely helps us out too, so thank you. Number 6. Savatar. Even though Savatar is not one of the tippy top fastest Flash villains around, he's still pretty crazy fast. He is fast enough to keep up with Wally, which means that he's faster than Barry Allen at least. Savatar also can simply make himself faster than many of the other speedsters. He is a charismatic character who created a cult based around his powers and beliefs, and at one point uses one of his followers, Christina Molotova's abilities, to transfer Speed Force powers from speedster heroes the world over to his own followers. He then attempted to kill any heroes left who remained in his way, including Wally West. But in the end, his own desire to integrate with the Speed Force directly would be his downfall. That and, like I said, the touch of Barry Allen, which disintegrated him. Bye! Number 5. Zoom. Zoom actually started out as a friend of the Flash. Hunter Zolomon was a member of the FBI who had suffered a personal tragedy that inspired him to learn more about criminal psychology. Apparently that's how all people that I feel like are detectives or like FBI agents in DC Comics, that's what always inspires these people. His father had been a serial killer who, rather than turn himself over, had his wife killed and refused to surrender to the authorities, being killed by the police as a result. After becoming paralyzed during an attack on the maximum security prison Iron Heights, Hunter turned to Wally West and the Cosmic Treadmill for help to undo the accident that had paralyzed him. Wally, however, revealed this was not something he could do, as it could immensely damage the timeline. Hunter instead broke into the Flash Museum himself, attempting to use the Cosmic Treadmill against Wally's advice, and caused an explosion in the process. This destroyed the museum but gave Zoom superpowers that allowed him to control time relative to himself, meaning that he can basically drastically speed himself up or slow himself down in comparison to everything that's happening around him. It's a little confusing, but it's pretty cool. Zoom relative to other people is therefore super fast, although to himself it just might feel as though he's moving normally, since he is in control of his own time flow, basically, if you will. After getting his powers, he would set out on a mission to make Wally a better hero. The way he saw it, Wally had refused to help him because, unlike Hunter and Barry Allen's Flash, he didn't know what it was like to suffer a personal tragedy. So he set out to show him what it was like, making him a better hero by attempting to kill his wife, because that's what friends are for. apparently. Number 4, Godspeed. Although Godspeed became a hero in the end, he did kind of start out as a villain. Of course, it wasn't at all his fault that he became a villain, as he was being manipulated by Eobard Thawne, dun dun dun. But this is of course why he isn't considered a full villain in my mind. Still, his actions were not great, and Godspeed, despite having heroic intentions, did end up killing a lot of people, especially other new speedsters. He was all about catching the criminals behind cold cases and getting closure for families, all because of his own brother's death. Godspeed in the Arrowverse is estimated to have a top speed of over 1 million kilometers per hour, or around 670,000 miles per hour if you're measuring in miles. That is really fast. Of course, in the comics, the more speed force Godspeed absorbs, the more powerful and the faster he gets. Number 3, Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne, I would say, is one of the fastest villains out there simply because, well, he's capable of time travel. Of course, a lot of other people on this list are capable of time travel, but I feel like he's one of the people that uses it the best. And of course, any time anyone can use time travel, it means they can actually pop up anywhere at any time. It doesn't necessarily mean he is the fastest runner, although he's like super fast, but it just means he can almost always be on time if he wants to be, or early, time travel, meaning he could beat you in a race simply by time traveling to where you need to get to, but show up before you even get there. Eobard Thawne, even without all this time traveling shenanigans connected to the negative speed force, is also just very fast in general. He was fast enough to sneak up behind Godspeed and kill him before Godspeed could even have any time to react, so that's pretty fast. Number 2, the Black Racer. The Black Racer is one of the fastest villains and speedsters around because he is meant to represent death. The Black Racer is an aspect of death incarnate. Not all of death, of course, as this character was also supposed to be a prisoner of Apocalypse, so if it were the only representation, I imagine other people in the universe wouldn't really be able to die unless Darkseid allowed it, I guess. This aspect of death eventually merged with Barry Allen during the events of Darkseid War. Barry became the new god that represented death, aka the new Black Racer, for a very short time, after trying in vain to outrun the death-bringing speedster. But you know, he's fast. It's a tough job, but hey, you know, someone's gotta do it. Someone's gotta catch those people, race them, and kill them. I don't know. Don't worry though, Barry's connection to the Black Racer would shortly thereafter be severed, and he'd be free to be a hero again once more. Success. Number 1, the Black Flash. The Black Flash is like the Black Racer, but a little more specific. He is the version of death who is specifically responsible for the speedsters, because I guess speedsters are so fast, too fast really, that they need their own version of death. They need someone who can beat their own speed, otherwise they'd outrun death, I suppose. I mean, I know you could play games against death to defeat him, and I've heard even of competing in music competitions with death, but I feel like the idea of racing death might be comic book exclusive. I think that I've never heard of that in any other tales that I've read. Despite being a villainous entity in a way because, well, the Black Flash kills people, at one point during Rebirth, Barry Allen took on the role of becoming the Black Flash after the former was believed to have been found dead. I don't know how you kill death, but I guess it's a thing that can happen. Also, I love that Barry Allen has been death twice. Can we just acknowledge that?
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Murder Machine. Great name. In part 2 of this list, we mentioned the Devastator, so this time we figured we had to include Murder Machine as well. Bruce Wayne, coming from the dark multiverse, Earth 44, had the same origin with the parents getting popped and all that stuff. He became Batman, he joined the Justice League, but then when Alfred was suddenly killed in the Batcave by some goons, Bruce feels responsible. He watches the footage over and over and over again, it's haunting him. So at Alfred's funeral, Bruce asks Cyborg if he can help him create an AI Alfred. You know, to help around the house, set reminders, lock the doors, all that good stuff. Cyborg agrees and Alfred protocol is underway. Its job was to assist and protect Bruce no matter what, and he was built as a hologram so he can use weapons and move stuff around. What could possibly go wrong? Day 1, this thing was already spreading itself around, building new bodies, and then it started to take out every criminal in Arkham Asylum, because they were deemed as threats, of course, so Batman had to adjust a few things, rightfully so. He wanted to allow AI Alfred to have access to the Batcave system, even though Cyborg was like, hey man, that's probably a terrible idea, but you're gonna do it anyways because you're Bruce Wayne. And he did. The AI first went after Bruce's mind because he didn't trust Bruce to keep himself safe. That's so meta. Then he took away Bruce's emotion, strapped him with some advanced tech, and once everybody was deemed a threat to Batman in some way, shape, or form, chaos erupted. A lot of death. Number 9, the Bruce. Coming from the Batman I-Joker storyline from the late 90s, this Batman is known simply as the Bruce, which has a nice little ring to it. I say it like that, the Bruce. Once a year, the Bruce puts on a hunt. The citizens are now allowed to fight and challenge him for the throne. It's called the Night of Blood. great name, but they also have to fight Batman's villains first, the surgically altered and reprogrammed versions, of course. The Bruce controls them all though, that's the messed up part. He just likes this gladiator, Halloween style night. He just likes violence. Luckily, and I can't believe I'm saying this, luckily a descendant of the Joker came in and put a stop to the Bruce. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, somewhere in that area, that would be great. It really helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you for your constant support. Let's keep going. Number 8, Digital Justice Batman. James Gordon II is the grandson, of course, of the Jim Gordon, and after the death of his partner Lena Schwartz, he sees some old newspaper clippings about the Batman, and he feels inspired. He feels like going through his grandfather's stuff. He's learning more, he's grieving, and then that's when he discovers that Gordon left him the Batsuit as well. Bruce Wayne's old Batsuit. How lovely. You should probably watch it twice though, just to be safe, you know? So James took over as the Batman with NetWiz Bobby Chang joining as his sidekick Robin. The two of them were recruited by the Batcom, which was a program set up specifically for this by the original Batman in order to pass along equipment and tech and all that good stuff. This is a complex online future world that we're now looking at, of course ruled by the digital Joker virus. And I thought that paperclip guy was annoying. Imagine this dude. Jeez.
Coming in at number 7, we have Owlman, the evil opposite of Bruce Wayne from the inverted Earth 3. Born under the name of Thomas Wayne Jr., as a young boy, Owlman murdered his younger brother Bruce and had his butler Alfred kill his parents to ensure that the Wayne fortune was not wasted by their frivolous spending. Using his costumed identity as Owlman to intimidate the leaders of Gotham into falling under his control, Owlman was a twisted version of everything that Batman stood for, and every time their universes have crossed over has led to some incredibly dramatic battles. And speaking of evil Batmen named Thomas Wayne...
Number 6, The Doom That Came to Gotham. Written by Mike Magnolia and Richard Pace, Batman The Doom That Came to Gotham is a 3-part Elseworld story where Batman's primary target is that of Lovecraftian monsters. Batman is in this 1920s era, he's rocking a Glock on the front cover. It's gritty, but the threat levels are cosmic. It's a fantastic blend. It's 1928, Bruce has returned home to Gotham a whole 2 decades later after his parents were killed. And he finds the city under attack from all these supernatural forces. It's wild. The way Batman handles these cosmic powerhouses, it's a ride. Even other players in the story are wild too, like Harvey Dent for example. His body started to deform after Poison Ivy touched him, and he was also chosen by Ra's al Ghul to be the living portal to Sotha's realm. Just goo into a wall of... yeah, it's just yuck. Number 5, Bat Joker. This version of Batman came to life in the New 52 Futures End storyline, also known as the Joker Borg. Remember the mayor of Halloween Town and Nightmare Before Christmas? This Bat Joker is kind of like that guy. He's got business in the front and then villain in the back. So Batman created a time-traveling device and sent Terry McGinnis, who I'll explain later on, into the past to prevent Brother Eye from being built by himself and Mr. Terrific. Batman was injured at this time, so Frankenstein took him, as well as the Joker, and then did some fun operation where the two became one cyborg. Batman's brain was literally picked apart here in order to find out where Terry McGinnis had been sent to, and then the Bat Joker was sent back in time as well to stop Terry. Bat Joker was heavily equipped though. He was loaded with super strength, so much so that this Bat Joker was amongst the strongest of the cyborgs of the end future. Number 4, Terry McGinnis. Of course we have to mention him now in case you're wondering, wait, who's this guy again? The year is 2039. Bruce Wayne had retired, but Project Cadmus director Amanda Waller was looking for a replacement for Batman, beginning with Project Batman Beyond. A major key element here was using the original Batman's blood samples left over after his fights and mix it in with some nanotech. Now we have the DNA, we just need a family to raise the kid. Amanda found the McGinnis household with Warren and Mary a perfect fit, as they were both psychologically identical to Thomas and Martha Wayne. One flu shot later, they were about to be the new parents of a new Batman. But obviously in Batman fashion, during Terry's teenage years, his father got killed, and Terry believed it was all because of the corrupt CEO, Derek Powers. So he asked for the help of the other guy part of this merger, that guy being Bruce Wayne. He didn't know anything at this point. But after a confrontation against the Joker's gang, Terry realized, oh, Bruce is the OG Batman. So Terry stole all his stuff and suited up himself as the new Batman Beyond. What an origin story. So sick. We had to include him in this list. Not so much weird. I mean, besides the whole, flu shot, now I'm alive thing. Guess we can make that weird and include it. Number 3, Owlman. Coming from Earth 3, making his first appearance in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 23, Owlman is actually not Bruce Wayne, but rather Bruce's older brother, Thomas Wayne Jr. See, instead of their parents getting shot, Thomas Wayne Jr. actually believed that they were doing such a poor job of managing their money, so he got Alfred to do it for them. He got Alfred to kill his parents, and then when young Bruce Wayne was trying to stop this horrible plan from happening, Thomas Wayne Jr. took out his own brother. He saw this as a sign of weakness. What a psycho. So with the family's wealth now, he became Owlman. As a Cape Crusader, Thomas was... well, he was the worst. I mean, the guy didn't mind using deadly force, for one, he actually preferred it. And what's a hero without a sidekick? This world's Dick Grayson tagged along and joined him, but that was after Owlman himself killed Dick's family. So a little bit of a twisted origin there too. And of course, there was also an evil super team, the Crime Syndicate.
Number 2, Nemesis. Nemesis is probably one of the most brutal Batman alternates we've ever encountered. Probably also because he doesn't even hail from DC Comics himself, but instead is a creation of Mark Millar's, who hails from Icon Comics. Mark Millar doesn't hail from Icon Comics, but this character does. Mark Millar does many things. Well, we do have an elaborate backstory for Nemesis, which involves him also seeking vengeance for the death of his parents, but in a much more twisted way. Since his parents were actually the worst kind of wealthy folks and murderers themselves, it's never really even confirmed that this backstory is the true backstory of Nemesis. In fact, it's even implied in the story that Nemesis could actually be multiple people who just cause mayhem and death and destruction because, well, maybe they just enjoy it? The whole idea of the character and everything that he does is pretty messed up and is quite dark. Nemesis provides a much more villainous take on the idea of vigilantes and how motivation can mess you up, or alternatively, how you really don't even need motivation to become a messed up and brutal vigilante in the first place. Also power. Lots of things about power, because that's how it goes.
Number 1, the God of Knowledge. Weird, magical, wonderful? Question mark? I'm not even sure what to call this one, but it's quite entertaining to say the least. The Mobius chair is the lazy boy of the galaxy. It made its first appearance in New Gods issue 1, and the chair was created by the Anti-Monitor. He gave the chair to Metron, but at one point Batman saw an opportunity of a lifetime. The chair was unused for a hot second, so Batman, king of musical chairs and problem solving, jumped on it and in turn became the god of all knowledge. How wonderful. At this point, the stakes are high. This couldn't have happened at a better time, honestly. The whole team was busy fighting Darkseid. Meanwhile, Batman's just floating in a chair in the background, figuring out the secrets of the universe, just trying not to throw up, trying to process all of this power. And that's when the Green Lantern adds a little bit of fun to this mix and tosses over his power ring. Just something to help Bruce get a grip. He puts it on Bruce's finger, power lights up the place, and he gets off the chair with a glowing lantern on his chest, right in the middle of the bat symbol.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Bizarro from Bizarro World. Hailing from the planet founded by Superman's own twisted doppelganger, Bizarro is the self-proclaimed world's worst detective, and spends his nights shooting down couples in Crime Alley as an awful inversion of Bruce Wayne's motivation for being Batman. More of a weird comedic foil to Batman than an actual supervillain threat, Bizarro would eventually try to redeem himself by fighting the Joker and jumping in front of a bullet meant for the real Batman, meaning maybe Bizarro had a little bit of good in him after all. Coming in at number 9, we have the Red Death. The first of many Dark Knights on this list, twisted variants of Bruce Wayne that banded together to escape their dying dark multiverse, the Red Death is a chilling example of what Batman could become if he cared more for his mission than he did for his friends. After the deaths of many of his allies in Gotham City, this version of Batman determined that he was more worthy of using the Speed Force than Barry Allen, and could have saved Robin's life if he was only a bit faster. Unfortunately, this version of Bruce took this plan way too far, capturing the Flash and combining his powers into himself, becoming the Red Death and forcing Barry Allen's consciousness to watch as he began killing every supervillain on the planet and continued his rampage across the entire multiverse. Coming in at number 8, we have the Dawnbreaker. In a dark multiverse world where Bruce Wayne was the one gifted a Green Lantern ring instead of Hal Jordan, this version of Bruce quickly became frustrated with all of the restrictions the Lantern Corps placed on his ring and his ability to wield emotions. Killing every criminal he encountered, Batman's power grew as he combined his ring with the darkness in his own heart, becoming known as the Dawnbreaker as he systematically wiped out every other Green Lantern in the galaxy. By the time he was done, he was the only lantern-wielding entity left in his universe, and joined the Dark Knights in order to find more victims to punish.
Number 7. Clone Batman. When Darkseid created a clone of Batman, he used it to make the world believe that Batman had died, when in reality, Darkseid actually sent Bruce back in time with his Omega beams. That's a pretty impressive trick already, but things go up a notch when that clone is revived as a Black Lantern and seeks out our remaining alive heroes. His job was to attach other rings to other heroes who have been resurrected before, but after he was done, he went back to get some beauty death sleep. In Batman and Robin issue 8, that Batman is revived using the Lazarus Pit, where he instantly attacks Dick Grayson, Batwoman. I mean, he's just going nuts at this point. He was strong too, he was really strong. The next issue, the clone took off after King Cole triggered an explosion, and then he took off and headed for Wayne Manor, where he then fought Alfred and Damian Wayne. Just going for blood right off the bat. Pun intended. Damian was tossed off the roof by Crazy Batsy, but thankfully Dick got him just in time. And in issue 9, the clone lost to Batwoman and Dick. Good ending-ish.
Coming in at number 6, we have the Batman of the Flashpoint universe, aka Thomas Wayne Sr. In a world where Bruce was gunned down by Joe Chill instead of his parents, Thomas Wayne became a dark and murderous red-tinted Batman, while Martha would be cursed to become this universe's version of the Joker. While initially an anti-hero ally during the first reveal of the Flashpoint universe, this Batman would go on to become a threat to the real Batman when he returned to the main DC universe and allied himself with Bane in order to get Bruce to quit being Batman forever. There's probably an easier way to get your son to stop being a superhero than allying yourself with a supervillain, but hey, I guess that's just some Wayne family drama that will continue to unfold as Thomas Wayne continues to make his way through the DC multiverse.
Number 5, the Merciless. This alternate version of Bruce is one who ends up wielding the power of Ares in the memory of Wonder Woman. Oh yeah, and he's also the one who fought with Diana to the very end against Ares before he inevitably was kind of forced to kill her. Or forced in his eyes, but in our eyes we're like, Bruce, don't do that. Don't do it. This alternate version of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, hails from the dark multiverse of Earth at -42 and is one of the Batman who laughs Dark Knights. To me, he represents Bruce's obsession with power and symbolizes what could very well happen if this was left unchecked. Bruce here loved Diana, but still ended up betraying her because he knew that she would not allow him to keep the power of Ares for himself and that she would rather destroy such power. So he was like, I gotta hold on to the power because I'm doing great with it, so I guess I gotta kill ya. But also, he wasn't doing that great with it. Spoiler alert.
Coming in at number 4, we've got another of the Dark Knights with Murder Machine. This version of Bruce Wayne comes from a universe very similar to the main DC continuity until the tragic death of Alfred Pennyworth at the hands of multiple Batman villains. Heartbroken and traumatized by the footage of the incident, Batman convinces his friend Cyborg to recreate Alfred's personality as an artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, this AI takes its task of protecting Batman far too literally, altering his brain chemistry to erase any sense of fear and completely replacing Bruce's frail human body with a metal replacement. Taking the name of Murder Machine, this Batman spread the Alfred AI throughout Gotham and was able to kill every criminal in Arkham Asylum, showing what would truly happen if Batman didn't have a heart. Coming in at number 3, we have the Devastator, a horrifying combination of Batman and Doomsday. This story takes place on one of the many dark multiverse worlds that saw Superman going rogue and taking over the entire planet, even murdering his own wife. To stop the demented Man of Steel, this Batman was forced to ingest the Doomsday virus, a last-ditch effort to save the planet that gave Bruce the strength to kill Superman, but at the terrible cost of his own mind. Furthermore, the Doomsday virus began to spread off Bruce's body and kill off the rest of this world, dooming the planet anyways, and leaving the Devastator as a beast-like Batman waiting for the rest of the Dark Knights to save him from his collapsing planet and give him a new target to hunt, even if eventually this Doomsday Batman hybrid would be defeated by, you guessed it, the real Superman. Coming in at number 2, we have the Emperor of Shadow, aka Bruce Wayne. In a recent one-off issue entitled Batman Superman Authority Special, Batman discovers a reality from the dark multiverse where Ra's al Ghul's plans to dominate humanity have come to pass, and the League of Shadows has become an Empire of Shadows, controlling the entire world. To make matters worse, the leader of this empire is a Bruce Wayne who gave in to Ra's al Ghul's teachings and embraced his position as the world's new emperor. While Batman and Superman were eventually able to destroy the link between this world and the regular DC universe in order to prevent an invasion, this twisted version of Bruce Wayne is still out there, likely biding his time until the next opportunity arises for the dark multiverse to attack the regular multiverse once again. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Batman Who Laughs. In a dark alternate world where the Joker realizes he's dying and begins a mass killing spree of everyone in Gotham, Batman is forced to finally kill his fated foe. Unfortunately, at the moment of death, Bruce was infected with a special brand of Joker venom that completely flipped his moral compass, but left intact all of his intelligence and planning. All of the chaos of the Joker with the brains of Batman, this supervillain is Bruce Wayne's worst nightmare come to life, and so far remains the most evil and deadly variant to ever be seen across the entire dark multiverse.
The list at number 10, Krypto the Superdog. This good boy was actually the test pilot for the ship that carried baby Kal-El to Earth. He made his first appearance in Adventure Comics issue 210. Now, I know that he's not a super person, so I wanted to start this list off with him because animals are family. I'll argue that all day. Now, he wasn't supposed to be a recurring character, but he's a cute little dog. Who doesn't want to see him come back, right? So when Jor-El was testing this rocket, he strapped Krypto in for the ride, but the rocket was hit off course and it drifted into space for years. I can't imagine what that feels like in dog years. He's probably so bored. No kibbles and or bits. No kibbles or bits. He was so orbits. No kibbles or bits. Wow, we're writing jokes on the spot. This is crazy. Now, eventually that ship did land on Earth when Clark was a teenager. It's always fun getting a dog in your teen years, even if it's a dog from a doomed planet. That works too. His abilities were also super. They were just a little weaker because, he's a Labrador Retriever. Obviously. Number 9, Super Demon. Coming in hot from Earth 13, pun intended, Super Demon, aka Etrigan, came from the cursed planet of Camelot and crash landed to Earth. Now, of course, it was a magical version of Earth, because fun. Every day on Earth 13 has 13 hours and 13 months. Sounds honestly pretty unlucky, more than anything. His League of Shadows was a pretty stellar crew. We have Hellblazer, Anataz, Witchboy, Swamp Man, Fate, Ragman, Deadman, and Enchantress. Merlin, the magician, bound the demon to a guy named Jason Blood, who naturally was an expert in demonology. His last name's Blood. In Batman Superman issue 20, the duo have to face off against the demon Prince of Hell. Now, of course, accompanied by his super vampires. You gotta start part 3 off on a demonic note as well. Feels right. Number 8, Superman Red and Blue. This amazing story comes from issue 162 of Superman. It was an imaginary tale, so it was a one-off, but in it we see this Superman stressed out. His super duties were starting to pile up. He couldn't be everywhere at once, so he pulled a Santa Claus too. The guy tried to enhance his intelligence with a machine, but ended up splitting himself into 2 parts. Now there's a red twin and a blue twin. They were the dream team. Together they created something called New Krypton. They enlarged Kandor on its surface, and they created a new underwater world for the citizens of Atlantis. So not only was the livelihood of Earth's population also increasing, but the love triangle that was happening in Superman's comics was also fixed. Super Blue asked Lana to marry him, while Super Red proposed to Lois. Lucy Lane even ends up with Jimmy Olsen. Now we have 3 weddings in 1. What a win. The issue ends asking readers which couple they think is happier. So what do you think? Comment down below. Just comment red or blue, it'll confuse everybody who's looking. And before we continue, if you want to just give this video a thumbs up as well, that would be pretty helpful. All you have to do is just do a little tap, a little And that's it, and then we all go home smiling. Isn't that wonderful? You're the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to some crazy alternate Superman. Number 7, Eradicator. Created by writer Roger Stern and first appearing in Action Comics Annual 2, the Eradicator was this Kryptonian artifact over 200,000 years old. This dying alien race created these devices in order to preserve their culture. It's kind of like when we sent that spacecraft out and it had like old music on. They're like, hey, whoever finds this is our culture. A group of aliens arrived to Krypton. A militarist faction led by Chem-L killed them and then corrupted one of these devices to preserve his idea of Kryptonian culture. The Eradicator would simply eradicate alien influences after this point. He was a weapon that became sentient. That sounds bad already, but when you add in the fact that the Eradicator has most of Superman's powers, it gets even worse. The sentient Superman has these amazing abilities: super strength, speed, heat vision, flight, the whole package. Plus he was originally a program from Krypton, so his history game is on point. He can also manipulate energy. He can absorb, convert, and then release energy from his hands or his eyes. So naturally he has to wear a visor because his eyes are sensitive. It's a badass visor. It's not like a Dairy Queen, you know. It's a good one. Number 6, Kal. What if Krypton was destroyed much sooner than it really was? What if Kal-El was sent to Earth during, I don't know, say the medieval ages? Superman Kal was written by Dave Gibbons, released in 1995, and in this reality Kal-El became a blacksmith after crash landing. A friend saw his strength and was like, oh, you should for sure be a blacksmith. You can definitely make swords, like with your hands. Go and do that right now. I mean, personally I would have suggested jousting, but blacksmiths are still cool. They're fine. He met Lois in this reality as well, and in this case she was Lady Lois, daughter of Baron Luthor. Uh-oh. So Kal's ship was found by Baron Luthor, and his first idea was to make a suit of armor out of the metal, like medieval knight's armor. So he got Kal-El the blacksmith to do so, but the bargain was that Kal-El can take Lady Lois's hand in marriage. So they get married, but after the ceremony, Luthor's like, oh, new rule, you actually can't sleep with somebody until after their wedding night. Sorry. So Kal was upset that night. He slept alone. He was crying into his pillows, listening to Careless Whisper, and then come morning time, he heard that Luthor had actually killed Lady Lois. No more wife. He had a wife for like 6 hours and then no more wife. Evil. Putting the evil in medieval, I see. So Kal grabbed his sword after, you know, making it with his hands or whatever, marched up to Luthor's castle and fought him naked. Yeah, Luthor tried to burn him with oil, but he's the Man of Steel, so his clothes just got burnt. So now he was naked and fighting. How amazing is that? Luthor ends up stabbing Kal with a kryptonite gemstone, and Kal stabs Luthor with his sword. Everybody wins. Or rather, everybody loses in this case. Number 5, Black Zero. We look now at an alternate version of Superboy from a hyper time stream where the Superman had not returned, and instead the clone kept aging. Now he made his first appearance in the Kingdom issue 2. He stuck around so his Kryptonian powers were fully developed on top of the telekinesis that he already had. Kon-El began his days as a hero, but people looked up to him obviously for a bit until, you know, he started going crazy and then nobody wanted to follow him. He was much different than the other guy, the normal Superman. He couldn't save the day as flawlessly, and eventually he just changed his name to Black Zero, which is a comforting nickname. So he had no association with Superman at this time, and then in Superboy Volume 4, Issue 64, it was a full-on Superman war. That rhymed, nice. Black Zero created a bunch of clones after that and was under the impression that humans would never leave a clone alone, so his solution was to just conquer his Earth. Metron of the New Gods soon contacted him and offered him more worlds via Hypertime, worlds that also had this clone mentality problem, whatever. Now these Superboys that he fought would lose and then end up in a stasis chamber. He was killing it. Now eventually he was beaten by the combined powers of other versions, with main continuity Superboy leading the pack. Number 4, Superman Earth 31. In Batman The Dark Knight Returns issue 3, we meet Earth 31's dark take on the Man of Steel. This comic inspired Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice because when Batman comes back to fight crime, he goes a little too hard with it. His methods are definitely messy. So Superman is sent in to stop the Caped Crusader. Now this Superman is a little less happy-go-lucky like some others on this list. Him and Lois have gotten divorced. He works for the corrupt US government, so they have a say on who he fights now and what he does. Some of Frank Miller's finest work, honestly, if you ask me. This is the same story that introduced Carrie Kelly as the new Robin. A must read. A little better than Dawn of Justice, just a little better. Number 3, Centaur Superman. Superman, Wonder Woman, Whom Gods Destroy was an Elseworlds imprint released in 1996. It's a 4-part miniseries that shows us a world where the Germans won World War II, and Bruce Wayne is also the president, and Harpy's working for Cersei kidnapped Lana Lang. What a time. So Clark and Lois fly over to Europe to find her. They book a flight, but during that flight, Harpies come back and the plane goes down over Germany. The goddess Athena turns Lois into Wonder Woman, and then she goes toe-to-toe with Diana, Wonder Woman, who at the time was working on the German side. And then as for Clark, after the crash, Cersei turns him into this crazy centaur. At this point, it has Shrek 2 vibes all over. It's just this mighty stallion on top of a hill with all the ladies below, centaur ladies below, just racing to greet him. They're like, who is this handsome man? And then they all just raid towns and party with their hooves and their good times. Honestly, it's a great time for Superman here, but for everybody else, it's just a nightmare. Number 2, Supergirl. Making her first appearance as Lois Lane's Superwoman back in 1943 in Action Comics issue 60, Supergirl has appeared in DC Comics for the first time a few times, actually quite longer than you think. The first time was a dream sequence. DC was testing the waters out at this point. So Lois ends up getting hit by a car. She's hospitalized, and then she dreams that she received a blood transfusion from Superman and in turn got his powers as well. A pretty fun dream considering you were slammed by a car moments earlier. Could be worse. So in this dream, she was Superwoman and had her own costume, the whole thing, and then in Superman issue 123, Jimmy Olsen uses a magical relic to wish Supergirl into existence. DC was trying out the Supergirl idea in a way that wouldn't impact the comics. So in that same comic, she sacrificed her life saving Clark, and then Jimmy wished her out of existence to fix the timeline. You know, instead of wishing to, I don't know, heal her. Here's an idea. Number 1, Super Sister. In Superboy issue 78, Superboy straight up finds a space woman entering Earth's atmosphere in like a UFO, and then he makes fun of her driving in his head. That's his first thought. Now unfortunately, that space woman was Charla, a telepath, and she's now upset at his inner monologue before she even gets out of her craft. But then out loud, he doesn't defend himself either. Like, he actually makes it worse. He's like, oh, if women run your world the way you run spaceships, I'm glad I don't live there. Like, dude, he's so angry for literally no reason. So Charla turns him into a girl and then leaves. So he starts going by Claire Kent at this point, and then he hangs out with Lana as Clark's sister. That's what he tells everyone. Now the dialogue alone, I mean, this is an old comic, mind you, but Superboy is like, oh man, I have to do girl stuff like cook? He's watching the boys play baseball outside. He's like, oh, if only I could do baseball instead. Damn 1960s stereotypes. He gets changed back at the end after he learns his lesson or whatever, but again, it turns out to be a dream. It's like the writers were too afraid to even go that far in these early comics. What a mess. Number 10, Lex L. We'll kick off part 2 with an Elseworlds story. This comes from Superman issue 230. Appropriately taking place on Earth 230 as well, we see Lex Luthor as the Man of Steel. Lex L was born on Krypton in this reality, only his father was an absolute nightmare to live with. He was insane, so they both left their doomed homeworld and they both landed on Earth. Now when they crashed on Earth, they just happened to cause the deaths of these 2 bank robbers, Jonathan and Martha Kent. So Lana's adopted brother was actually Clark Kent, so the two ended up hating each other down the road. You know, we love opposites, a nice fun play on opposites, but I feel bad for Lex L because he's bald. He has to wear a wig in his normal life. Whereas Clark Kent in normal continuity just has to put on glasses and then he blends in. This dude has to wear, he must go through so many wigs. Those things are not cheap, no way. Number 9, Bizarro Superman. First appearing in Superboy issue 68. Bizarro was created, as you would guess, from a duplicating ray, hence the similarities, but only he's a Frankenstein clone. He has the opposite intentions. He can breathe fire and shoot ice out of his eyes, so it's a fun opposite. The new 52 version of Bizarro was created when Lex Luthor tried to clone Superman, and instead of waiting 10 years for the project to be complete, Lex released him only after 5, so in turn he had this pale, still shredded though, but slow version of Superman. Now the second Bizarro clone, making its first appearance with DCEU Rebirth issue 1, ended up teaming up with Red Hood and Artemis, but the OG version is still my favorite. Even the way he spoke, everything would be the opposite of what he wants. It was so fun. So in the words of Bizarro, don't give this video a thumbs up and certainly do not subscribe if you haven't already. Number 8, Harvey Dent. Taking a dive into Tangent Comics, this Earth 9 Supes is a telepathic and telekinetic guy who uses a golden staff. I'm already a fan. Harvey's story began after he fell off the tallest building on Earth. When he stood up with only a few scratches, it was clear that his new abilities finally arrived. Dubbed the Superman, Harvey was capable of anything he put his mind to. The reason he got those abilities goes way back to the 70s when Nightwing was trying to create more superhumans. They used this experimental accelerant called the Miraclo solution, which is a catchy name, gotta admit, and then he dosed an entire town in South Carolina. Harvey was the only survivor, and after teaming up with the Flash and Atom, down the road Harvey decided to remake the Miraclo solution and give it to his fiancée Lola. Rumor has it she didn't survive, but she did, and she also received powers. Number 7. Karkan the Mighty. Instead of landing in America, what if Kal-El landed in the darkest jungles of Africa? Coming from Superboy issue 183, Karkan was raised by gorillas. Tarzan with laser vision. What a treat. Now he realizes he's different from the others after he learns how to fly. I guess the whole being a human thing didn't tip him off, but that's great. But this guy rocks. He's not smashing through buildings, fighting General Zod. No, this time he's saving hundreds of animals from floods. Guy grabs an elephant by its ears and just flies away. What a champ. I'm also a fan of Karkan's super suit. The one strap though looks a bit annoying. I wouldn't know which side to put it on. I'd never be too sure. He could totally wear this super suit upside down if he wanted to. Just saying. Number 6, Subject 1. Coming from the Flashpoint universe, Subject 1 had a different landing spot instead of Smallville. Kal-El crashed down here in Metropolis, of course killing random civilians because, the ship landing in the middle of the city. So the government takes custody of him, and that's when Project Superman begins. He was used as a weapon. Subject 0, of course, also exists, starts secretly training the boy, and then Subject 2, Crypto, sacrifices its life attacking the Luthors. It's pretty dark, all these test subjects locked away in a lab their whole life. But in Flashpoint Volume 2, Issue 2, Batman, the Flash, and Cyborg come to break the Subject 1 out. And on his way out, the power source containing Subject 0 in the Phantom Zone was destroyed, so he was now free. We love a happy ending. In a timeline that's been ripped apart, that is. Number 5, Justice Lord. Coming from the animated universe, 2003 Justice League episode titled A Better World showed us one that's rather darker. This parallel universe showed Kal-El and the Justice Lord storming the White House. President Lex Luthor had just executed the Flash, and the team wasn't too happy about it. So Batman and Wonder Woman fought off the Secret Service while Superman tells Luthor that he's taking him in. Now Lex is obviously insane, so he has a button that can just start a nuclear war if pressed. One of those easy buttons, just, a nightmare. Now he's threatening Superman, saying that he needs to use deadly force if he wants to save the people, so Superman does. His eyes glow red, and when Batman and Wonder Woman come back in, it's too late. They can smell his corpse. It's really gross. Superman though, he was all smiles. This was just the start. Now it cuts to a couple years after this point, and the Justice Lords were ruling the Earth. And of course, freedom was not included. Number 4, Composite Superman. Joseph Meach made his first appearance in World's Finest issue 142. He was a diver struggling to get by, so he put on this sidewalk diving show. Those sidewalk diving shows we always come across. He jumped from a high building into this water tank, but the water, unbeknownst to him, was actually leaking out. So when he went to jump, he almost landed in a practically empty tank, but Superman thankfully saved his life. Now on top of that, Superman even gave this guy a job. He employed him as a custodian at the Superman Museum. So Joseph was pretty bitter after this point. He had his own misfortunes, plus he's now shining Superman's cape all day. I get it, but when a lightning bolt hit the statue of the Legion of Superheroes, Joseph got all of their power somehow. So he used this new shape-shifting power look to look both like Batman and Superman, going by the Composite Superman. So Meach would plan these situations for Batman and Superman to show up and save the day, but they were rigged to make these heroes look stupid. His powers were impressive, but not permanent. He reverted back to human form one day with no recollection of what he had done. Number 3, Cyborg Superman. Hank Henshaw made his first appearance in Adventures of Superman issue 465. He was a scientist, astronaut, and team leader of the Excalibur crew. He was joined on this LexCorp space mission by his wife and 2 others. A lot of Fantastic Four vibes going on here, that's for sure. In fact, after the cosmic rays got to the crew, the powers were actually quite similar. Terry, Hank's wife, was essentially the Invisible Woman, whereas Hank, his face started to melt off. It actually ended horribly for everybody but Terry. Now Superman saved her, the others it was too late, but in Adventures of Superman issue 468 it was revealed that Hank lived through iCloud. Yeah, basically he transferred all of his consciousness to LexCorp's mainframe, and then he took over NASA's equipment, and then he beamed his mind into the birthing matrix, the pod that carried Superman from Krypton. So now he was able to travel the cosmos and learn about other local life forms and their history. And he eventually came to the conclusion that Superman was evil and needed to be stopped. So he recruited Mongol and planned his revenge, but after Superman died battling Doomsday, Hank claimed to be the Superman reborn. Not a bad plan. So far, he's killing it. Number 2, Superdoom. Coming from Earth 45, this Superman was also a project gone wrong. He first appeared in Action Comics Volume 2, Issue 9, when Jimmy Olsen created a machine that could turn thoughts into reality. So the gang decided to make a robot Superman. What could go wrong, I wonder? They ended up selling this device to Overcorp, which made it into a Superman the Last Night of Tomorrow, aka the monstrous Superdoom. Now, Overcorp used him to take over the planet, obviously, but that still wasn't enough. Superdoom entered the bleed space and searched the multiverse for his creators, destroying planets and other versions of Superman, like Optiman of Earth 36 and Superman of Earth 42, but eventually it came to Earth 23 and had to go against their Superman, Calvin Harris, aka the Superman President. And if you want to know more about the President Superman, check out part 1 of this list after you're done, if you haven't done so already. And finally, number 1. Darkseid Superman. In Superman Darkseid issue 1, released back in the late 90s, we see an alternate life for Kal-El when Metron intercepts his escape pod and gives the Kryptonian to Darkseid instead. There you go, enjoy. Now, it doesn't take long for Superman to then become the champion of Apocalypse. His name was instantly heard across the planet. This guy wore dark armor, he was way more brutal when it came to combat, and when he led the battle against New Genesis, he destroyed the home of the New Gods. And as the planet died, the High Father told him the truth about his origins and his true prophecy, so he was then sent to Earth, where he almost drowned because he was wearing all that badass armor, but luckily he was saved by a woman named Lane. Brutal origin story, but we got where we needed to be eventually. Kicking off the list at number 10, The Nail. Created by Alan Davis, this version of Superman is Amish. Hot start, that's right. After he survived the destruction of Krypton, baby Kal-El was then sent to Earth in order to survive. The origin story for Superman gets a little strange when Martha and John Kent got a flat tire before departing for Smallville that day, hence the name The Nail. Now we're putting it together, there we go. So the lovebirds end up staying in for the night. Martha says she's in the mood just to stay home, and John agrees. So now instead the super infant was found by an Amish couple. Now he's raised a good lad, but he's disconnected from the world. He's churning butter, not checking Twitter. He has no clue he's a Kryptonian. So in turn, we get to see a Justice League with no Superman, and the world is a hot mess. Lex salvaged Kal-El's spaceship after he landed, so he used that tech to create an evil version of Jimmy Olsen. But when Super Jimmy is fighting the Justice League, the fight moves to Amish Kal-El's backyard, and that's when he discovers his true powers. He always had a feeling he was superpowered, he just didn't really know. So he bids farewell to his Amish folks, and then he unleashes the power of a god. What a day. Number 9, Injustice Superman. This comic run began back in 2013. Injustice Gods Among Us issue 1, brought to us from the minds of Tom Taylor and Jeremy Rappak, comes this dark alternate reality where Lois Lane was kidnapped by the Joker. So he goes on this hunt with the help of the Justice League, tearing submarines apart, looking for his love, but as issue 4 begins, so do the streams of our tears. Lois Lane gets killed, and in turn, Superman goes bat insane. He couldn't even stick around. He gave the body to Wonder Woman and then shoom, he just flew off. Green Lantern tried to talk to him a little bit, saying, you know, you're hurt, you're angry, yada yada yada, just slow down. But Superman wasn't having it. He had something better on his mind. Batman's face says it all during this scene. Superman tells Batman during his dark ruling days that he learned the idea of enforcing peace through fear from Batman himself. I see no lie here. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be super helpful for us at Top 10 Nerd. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your support. And let's not waste any time and get you right back into this list. Number 8, Kingdom Come Superman. Shifting over to an alternate reality with an older Justice League, this Superman isn't as ruthless, but take that with a grain of salt. Kal-El of Earth 22 made his first punch into DC Comics with Kingdom Come issue 1. Now this is a version where Lois Lane still did perish, only before her untimely demise she made Superman promise to her that he would not kill the Joker in retaliation, so a little bit different this time. So he followed through and simply had the clown arrested. But this new superhero named Magog made their debut, and then they in turn ended up killing the Joker. Magog was obviously put on trial because, you know, killing's bad and all that stuff. but he was acquitted. The general public was like, oh, the Joker? Yeah, that guy was horrible. Thanks, great work. I can take the bus without having a panic attack now. Lovely, sounds wonderful, keep it up. Superman had to then rethink a lot after this. I mean, the public is now okay with killing villains. What does this world even come to? He's been letting these guys live, and in turn they've broken free over and over again, and then continued killing innocents over and over again. So he then just disappears to the Fortress of Solitude for a bit, observing without intervening. Now, he did return less than a decade later, but the world had fallen into a societal depression. So with a new suit, older Clark Kent returned to the League, ready to once again enforce a code of ethics. Number 7. Calvin Ellis. When a comic book hints at a past president of the United States, it's usually pretty comical. For example, in Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys issue 5, we meet Harley Sin, and her father looks and acts a little bit like Donald Trump. It's a ride. Now, Calvin Ellis, on the other hand, was written by Grant Morrison to be based off Barack Obama and Muhammad Ali. So a much better person and role model, I'd say, just right off the bat. Earth 23 Superman President Ellis made his first appearance in DC Comics with Final Crisis issue 7. Kal-El was raised by the Ellis family, teaching him to always stand up for himself no matter what, and to fight for what he believes in no matter what bullies stand in your way. Little more optimistic and useful than the Amish family, I'd say, just a tad. Can I churn butter? Or can I like save people? No? Just churning butter? Alright, great. Number 6, Ultraman. Coming from Earth 3, originally Earth 2 in the comics, Ultraman is the evil version of Superman. Always fun, even if it's dark. Appropriately named Clark Luthor, he gets more power the more kryptonite he's exposed to. So if you see him dipping some crystals and licking them, you know, you gotta hit the deck. And the design is pretty much the same, only instead of a hopeful S on his chest, Ultraman rocks a U. The angrier Ultraman gets, the stronger he also gets. So usually a play on opposites are fun in comics. This one's just borderline terrifying. Number 5, Red Sun Superman. Superman Red Sun was released in 2003 from the mind of Mark Millar, part of the Elseworlds imprint. And we ask, what if Superman had been raised in the Soviet Union? I just watched Black Widow, we saw like a Russian Captain America, great stuff. Now we're talking about Russian Superman. That's why we're here, folks, let's do it. The ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm instead of Texas, and this idea had been floating around in Millar's mind since he was a 6-year-old. Back when he read Superman issue 300, it showed the USA and the USSR rushing to claim the fallen Super Sun when he landed in neutral waters. Now, Mark Millar always wondered what it would be like if the other guys ended up getting to him first, an idea that subsequently earned Millar an Eisner Award nomination in 2004 for Best Limited Series, so you must check it out. Number 4, Superman Parallax. In Superman Volume 4, Issue 29, written by Keith Champagne, we see Superman on the search for missing children from Metropolis, but when Superman follows a lead, he's greeted from fear himself at an abandoned hospital. Parallax and Superman fight it out, but realizing he has no other choice, Superman offers himself up to the Dark Force. The only being that can save Earth at this point after is Sinestro, a powerful alternate, perhaps one of the scariest. You be the judge. Number 3, Lara Lane Kent Supergirl. This next version of Supes looks a lot like the version that we're going to get in the new Flash movie, so I had to throw her in there to get the gears spinning a bit. She's the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane. She appeared for the first time in Injustice Gods Among Us Year 3 storyline. Now, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, we learn that Lois Lane is indeed pregnant, and the following sequels would have shown us a world without Lois. So perhaps this Flash film will show us this bright alternate world where Batman has killed the Joker and Supergirl grows up with both of her parents' guidance. She looks pretty badass too. Now, these are just set photos, but the similarities are wild. To see for yourself, check out Injustice Year 3, starting with issue 6 or 7. I think she comes in around there. Number 2, Superboy Prime. This version of Superman has more powers and less weaknesses. I'm talking immunity to kryptonite and magic. He first appeared in DC Comics Presents issue 87, where Kal-El landed on Earth and was discovered by Jerry and Naomi Kent while they were on a hike in the New England seacoast town. They named him Clark, although Clark Kent was the name of a popular comic book hero, Superman. So yeah, he already existed on this Earth Prime. Now, Clark grew up and later attended a costume beach party, which I gotta say, tights plus sand, really? It's not the best idea, I don't know. They went to get a glimpse of Halley's Comet by the beach. It sounds great. Clark even dressed up like Superboy, although he was being teased. And then all of a sudden a tidal wave hits, a portal opens, and the Superman pops out from another dimension. Now at the same time, Clark's powers manifested and he quickly learned what to do with them in the moment. Superboy followed that Superman back into the portal to his reality. Unbeknownst to him though, he would never come back. That is until he decides to later punch reality apart. Number 1, Superman Prime. Superman of the 853rd century. He's literally a living extension of the sun at this point in time, so we gotta finish with him. He left Earth way back in the late 21st century once everybody he cared about passed away. Okay, he's like, oh, she's dead? Peace. What about the millions of others you could help? I don't know. There's other people. Meet other people. Go on Hinge. I don't know. He traveled beyond space and time after that, literally reaching heaven and hell, and he made his first appearance in DC 1 Million issue 4. So after soaking up the sun for 15,000 years straight, Superman obtained new abilities. He's more powerful than the gravitational pull of a collapsing star, and is many, many times faster than the speed of light. He's so powerful that he has some energy to spare. One of those new abilities is to share his power with others. A small amount, but still, that's far beyond any other metahuman at that point ever. You thought Superman was godlike before. This guy can literally smell you across the universe. And that's not even a joke. It's called superhuman olfaction. It's a real thing. He can smell trouble.